Chapter 79. The village head's words caused Wang Lu, this professional adventurer, to fall into a considerable confusion. He felt that everything that happened in the village was particularly strange. "Grandpa Village Head, what's wrong?" Hearing the 4 words, "Village Head Grandpa," the color of regret in Wang Qinian's eyes became a bit thicker. Looking at Wang Lu's dusty face, Wang Qinian lamented, "Child, all these years, you've gone astray." Although he knew that what he said was definitely not the same thing, Wang Lu still felt distressed. "Damn it, who said it wasn't? But, fortunately, your luck is good." Wang Qinian's expression seemed like he could still be saved. "The Taoist immortals of the 7 Stars sect will soon come to the village to enlighten the predestined person. I think we should be able to ask them to help you. Although your relationship with Xiaohu is not very good, he is a person who remembers old friendship, so he should be willing to come forward to help." When these words came out, in Wang Lu's mind, tens of thousands of alpacas spread their wings like doves of peace, and their droppings fell like rain. The youth felt that these droppings were as dense as a lotus seed, enough to drive him crazy. But, 7 Stars sect? That group of wild chickens, and Wang Xiaohu? Wang Lu calmed himself down and suddenly remembered the duel that took place on the cloud platform of the Spirit Sword Mountain a few months ago, as well as the fuse that led to the duel. "I think I probably understand what happened in the village." Wang Lu sneered and inwardly said, "It's really the same as what the textbook says. Looking at the aura, if the color is yellow, then this place might be haunted by a demon, not a big disaster, but a group of demons and monsters. I was worried that there might be some hidden devil, but it turns out they're just a group of fake medicine scammers." He didn't say these words to the old village head. Although the old man had white hair and a youthful face, he was actually over 70 years old. If he said these words that were enough to shock his worldview, if he got a cerebral hemorrhage, then that would be a sin. "Grandpa Village Head, how long have these Taoist immortals of the 7 Stars sect been in the village?" Seeing the dignified expression on Wang Lu's face as he began to inquire about the 7 Stars sect, Wang Qinian thought that the youth had the tendency to turn over a new leaf, which greatly relieved him. Because according to the 7 Stars sect's Taoist immortals, some of the youths who were cheated by the swindlers would become particularly stubborn and difficult to be enlightened. Even if they were killed, it would still be difficult to make them admit that they were cheated. And Wang Lu, who left the village 2 years ago and went to a secluded sect to be his master, was likely to become such a victim. However, in the end, he was still the clever and likable child in the village, and he quickly came to his senses. The Taoist immortals came to the village more than 2 years ago. Speaking of which, it is also thanks to the child Xiaohu's good fortune. If it weren't for his extraordinary talent and being chosen by the Taoist immortals, it would be difficult for our Wang family village to have such good fortune. Over the years, many people have been enlightened by the Taoist immortals. Even in the entire Great Ming Kingdom, there are few villages as lucky as ours. Wang Qinian was about to go on and on about the 7 Stars sect's great achievements when Wang Lu interrupted him. Who were the people that they enlightened? Wang Qinian said, needless to say, Wang Dafu's family. In addition, Wang Taizhu, Wang Laozhen, Wang Shanyao, there are about 7 or 8 people. Wang Lu sneered, thinking, what a coincidence, the richest people in the village are all on the list. The only exception is Wang Shanyao, but he has a beautiful daughter, who happened to be the goddess that Wang Xiaohu has been longing for many years. TSK, this is too unscrupulous. Fortunately, this is the Wang family village, this kind of remote and inexperienced village. If this was another place, it would have been seen through long ago. Then, what about my father? As the richest man in the village, he was, of course, the best development target, right? It would have been better if he didn't mention it, but once he did, Wang Qinian began to sigh again. Little Lu, your father, is indeed a fated person in the eyes of the Taoist immortals, but who told the road to happiness to be strewn with setbacks? Wang Lu asked, is it because of Wang Xiaohu's interference? As a result, Wang Qinian became angry. This child, why didn't you learn anything good in these 2 years? Instead, you learned a bad heart from the outside. Although Wang Xiaohu had a conflict with you in the past, in this past year, he never said anything bad about you in front of the Daoist immortals. On the contrary, when the Daoist immortals learned that you left the village 2 years ago to worship another Daoist immortal, they originally intended to give up on your father, and even wavered their intention to enlighten the village. It was only because of Wang Xiaohu's persuasion that there was a turning point. Oh, so that's how it is. A smile appeared on Wang Lu's face. No wonder along the way, the villagers looked at him with strange eyes. It turned out that they regarded him as the culprit who was deceived by a cult, implicated his family, and possibly even implicated the village. Therefore, on the one hand, they were somewhat disgusted, but on the other hand, they regarded him as a victim and sympathized with him. He really had to thank Wang Xiaohu for his good words, ha ha ha. Then I really have to thank Brother Xiaohu. AI, it's good that you know. Originally, your father and the Seven Stars sect didn't have any affinity with the immortals. It was Xiaohu's repeated persuasion that the Daoist immortals listed him as an activist. It was also Xiaohu's idea to let him come forward to build a courtyard for the Daoist immortals. After the completion, they could upgrade it to a development target. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu couldn't help but ask, courtyard? It's a place for the Daoist immortals and other disciples to stay. Although there are a lot of empty houses in our village, how could those dilapidated houses entertain the Daoist immortals? So, village head grandpa, just tell me how much did you spend? Only your father knows the specific number, but it's at least 300,000 to 500,000 taels. Wang Lu almost jumped up. 300,000 to 500,000. Are you trying to build a city? This is, after all, a courtyard for the Daoist immortals. How could it be measured by our mortal standard? The materials must be carefully selected. Wang Lu sneered. Yes, our villagers' eyesight is not good enough, so the Seven Stars sect must send someone to select the materials for the construction. My father only needs to pay for it. Wang Qinian froze for a moment. Yes, how do you know? Wang Lu laughed again. If it's me, I would also do it this way. Moreover, they are Daoist immortals, so they certainly won't care about the mortal world's gold and silver. Therefore, they probably don't even have an account book, right? Wang Qinian always felt that there was something wrong with this statement, but the fact was unmistakable. This, Daoist immortals would not covet the mortal world's wealth. Hee hee. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu felt that it was enough. Village head grandpa, it's impossible for the Seven Stars sect's Daoist immortals to always stay in the village, but there should be other disciples in the village, right? Wang Qinian was stunned. There is indeed. There is a Seven Stars sect's publicity envoy, who is a senior disciple of the sect. His status is several levels higher than Xiaohu's. Is Xiaohu also there? Yes, he is now the publicity envoy's assistant. Okay, I understand. With that, Wang Lu no longer exchanged pleasantries with village head grandpa, got up, and left. After that, Wang Lu was not in a hurry to go home. Instead, he stood outside the village head's house, using his eyesight to observe the surrounding spiritual energy, trying to find the source of the yellow stain. With his qi cultivating stage cultivation base, it was impossible for him to do so. However, with the best quality void spirit root, before long, Wang Lu saw a trace of yellow stain rising from the east side of the village, which disturbed the entire spiritual energy movement in the village. This was the old residence of his father, Master Wang, who was building a new house to get rich. Although the area was not big, in the mountain village, it was rare for it to be clean and tidy. No wonder people took a fancy to it. Interesting, it actually delivered itself to the door. When Wang Lu murderously rushed to the crime scene, he was surprised to find that the source of the evil was preaching inside the house, and there were many innocent onlookers outside, so that his original plan could not be carried out smoothly. According to Wang Lu's idea, to deal with this kind of swindler, picking up a weapon and beating them up was more effective than anything else. If they were not convinced, then he could just kill them with a sword, and the others would naturally be convinced. As long as the source of the evil was removed, everything else would be handled with half the effort. However, he did not expect that the publicity ambassador would come to the village, and was unwilling to be left out, diligently doing his business. Now there were dozens of people outside the courtyard, listening with great interest. How could he enter and kill them? While he was hesitating, he heard the publicity ambassador speak in a clear voice. The path to immortality is not far away, it is right beside us. As long as we seize the opportunity, everyone can become immortals. Many sects like to portray immortal cultivation as aloof and unreachable, but that is because their concept of immortal cultivation is outdated. At the same time, they are also worried that our awakening will shake their ruling position. Imagine if everyone becomes a cultivator, an immortal. How can those immortal sects have the qualifications to order us around and be aloof? Therefore, please put down the prejudice in your heart, summon your courage, face the path to immortality, and say to yourself, I can do it. Moreover, even if you feel that you are too old and do not want to embark on the path to immortality, you still have to think about your children, right? At this time, the villagers were deeply attracted by his words, and made a thoughtful expression. A few women were even discussing, that's right, I feel that our family's dog has natural spiritual roots, he is the material for immortal cultivation. A few years ago, there was a passing Taoist priest who said he didn't have it. I think it was that Taoist priest with bad intentions. Even Dr. Wang, a rare cultured person in the village, echoed, isn't that so? At that time, everyone saw his immortal-like appearance and thought he was some capable person, so they treated him very warmly. But when we asked him to do something, he refused in every way possible. He really doesn't look like he has real skills. Wang Lu's expression became more and more serious as he listened from outside. The conversation of the villagers was really stupid. If it was the Li family village or the Zhang family village, Wang Lu would at most scold them for being retarded in his heart. However, growing up in the Wang family village, Wang Lu was very clear that this simple and honest village should not have such hostile villagers. There was no doubt that the withered yellow color was not only a change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but it had also been projected onto people's hearts. There was no such thing as a simple and honest people in the world. In Wang Lu's view, perhaps after a few decades or 100 years, when he became famous and the Wang family village became the former residence of an immortal cultivator, this small and fresh social atmosphere would naturally not be able to be maintained. However, both were women. Spending a night with a prince on a white horse or being raped by a giant mountain ape were two completely different concepts, okay? At this time, someone in the house asked, then may I ask Mr. Zhou, how should we grasp this immortal fate? As soon as this person's voice sounded, Wang Lu could not stand still. Because the person who spoke was his father, the richest man in the Wang family village, Master Wang Fugue. And the following conversation was even more maddening. To be specific, it depends on whether your heart is sincere or not. Didn't I say it before? First, build a courtyard for the several Taoist immortals of the Seven Stars sect, and then we can talk about the rest. Old Master Wang said hesitantly, but it's just a courtyard, yet it actually cost 1 million. This is also, oh, Master Wang is reluctant to part with the money? Master Wang suddenly broke into a cold sweat. It's not that I'm reluctant, it's just that I think I'm a person with shallow fortune. In this life, I'm already satisfied with just a little bit of wealth, so I'd rather forget about the immortal path. Seeing the richest man flinched, that public publicity envoy chuckled. Master Wang, actually, this matter is not just about your opportunity, but the entire village's immortal fate. If you build this courtyard for the Taoist immortals, in the future, when the Taoist immortals come, everyone will benefit from it. Could it be that Master Wang has the heart to ruin the entire village's immortal fate? How could old Master Wang bear the weight of this accusation? He immediately trembled. If that's the case, then that million, seeing that he was about to clench his teeth and agree, a righteous voice suddenly sounded from outside the door. All of you, stop. Chapter 80. All of you, stop. While they were talking, a young man in red and white entered the room like a gust of wind. His face was covered in dust, but there was a hint of a sneer on his face. Interesting. The swindlers of an evil sect actually dared to mess with me. This Blue River province really needs to be regulated. The publicity ambassador was taken aback. May I know who you are? Thank you for asking. I'm your father. Wang Lu resisted the urge to raise his sword and slash him. He answered with a fake smile. In front of his fellow villagers, he still hoped to solve the problem in a peaceful way, but it was really difficult to vent his anger, so his gaze was as horrifying as it could be. However, this Mr. Zhou, who was sent by the Seven Stars sect to preach, was not an easy person to deal with. Although he was stared at by Wang Lu until his legs went soft and his bladder went numb, his face remained calm. Ignoring his rudeness, he turned around and began to mobilize the crowd. Everyone, does anyone know whose child this is? The villagers didn't react at first, but after a while, some of them vaguely recognized it. This child. Could he be little Lu? Hearing this, old Master Wang's body trembled. He stood up in disbelief. Little Lu? It's you. Being called by his father, Wang Lu couldn't pretend that he didn't hear it. He waved his hand and said, Father, please sit down and don't make a sound. After I've dealt with this swindler, we can talk about our father-son relationship. At this time, Mr. Zhou came back to his senses. Wang Lu. You're the Wang Lu who went out to seek immortality 2 years ago. Wang Lu sneered, That's right. What can I do for you? I don't dare to give advice, it's just. Mr. Zhou said and then leisurely smiled. It seems like you have some prejudice against our Seven-Star sect. Prejudice? What a joke, would you be prejudiced against a pile of dog poop? Mr. Zhou's expression suddenly changed. Kid, do you know that a loose tongue can cause trouble? If you insult the Seven Stars sect, be careful that the Taoist immortals of the Seven Stars sect will send disaster to you. While speaking, his eyes swept around. It's more likely to implicate other people. This was another trick to mobilize the masses. When the villagers of Wang family village heard this, they immediately became noisy. Little Lu, what are you doing? Hurry up and apologize to Mr. Zhou. You, shut up and apologize to of Zhou. Hearing the quarrel behind him, Wang Lu's face turned black. All of you, shut up. The sound of his voice was like muffled thunder, and the dust on the roof of the roof. The surrounding villagers were immediately shocked. Although he was just a level 7 Qi cultivating stage newcomer, in the mortal world, Wang Lu had long been a transcendent figure. In the army, he was a peerless general who could fight against 1,000 men. In the martial arts world, he was a super great grandmaster. With just a lift of his hand, he could easily deter a group of mortals. Wang Lu thought for a moment. Although giving the name of his sect to this lowly swindler seemed to damage his sect's reputation, if he could make this Seven Stars sect retreat, it would save him a lot of trouble. Lingjian School. Mr. Zhou frowned. Lingjian School? After a moment, he nodded. Turns out you're the disciple of Lingjian School. No wonder you have such skill. However, even if it's Lingjian School, it still needs to be reasonable. For no reason, you humiliated my Seven Stars sect, and then used overbearing means to intimidate the innocent villagers. This is somewhat unreasonable. Wang Lu was shocked. What the hell, are you crazy? After hearing the name of Lingjian School, you actually didn't obediently kneel down and lick my name, but instead, you want to argue with me, a successor disciple. You really have the guts. In the past, when this old man brought that dead fatty to the small clear sky peak, I was not as bold as you. Admittedly, in theory, no matter how big one's background was, there should be a reason, but in the 9 regions, how could there be so many reasons? The bigger the fist was the hard truth. And no matter how much the Lingjian School declined, it was, after all, one of the 5 unique immortal cultivation sects. Not to mention the 10 elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall, even if a senior disciple came, he could easily trample over 100 of these 7 Stars sect. Arguing with the Lingjian School? Do you think you're worthy? However, in the face of Mr. Zhou's spirit of seeking death, Wang Lu's interest was piqued. "Oh? You want to reason with me?" Being stared at by this young man, Mr. Zhou felt uncomfortable all over, but he still maintained his imposing manner. "Yes, I want to reason with you. Just now, you insulted my 7 Stars sect, so there must be a reason." Wang Lu smiled. "Reason? Does the Lingjian school need a reason to trample on people? Forget it, I'll be a bit more honest. Is deceiving the common people enough?" "Oh, how can I deceive the common people?" Mr. Zhou laughed out loud and then began to mobilize the crowd. "Everyone, do you feel that I've deceived you?" One after another, the ignorant villagers echoed, "There's no such thing, Mr. Zhou." That's right, that's right. Listening to you talk about the difference between immortal and mortal, we, the country folks, are suddenly enlightened. Mr. Zhou, you said that our family's dog also has the immortal cultivation spirit root. I absolutely believe you. Little Lu, don't make trouble. Wang Lu frowned, and then his voice shook the surrounding area. All of you, shut up. Surnamed Zhou, don't use the ignorant people as a shield to fish in troubled waters, or else I'll directly kill you. This was not a bluff. That naked murderous intent caused Mr. Zhou's heart to palpitate. Very well, then please tell us, how exactly did our 7 Stars sect deceive the common people? Based on your words that everyone can become an immortal, I know that your 7 Stars sect is just a lowly swindler. If everyone can become an immortal, why don't we see immortals springing up like bamboo shoots after the rain? Who knew that Mr. Zhou would laugh, but his attitude was as if he had finally fallen into his rhythm. Good question. This question has actually been bothering the immortal cultivation world for tens of thousands of years. In the past, people thought that the immortal fate was predestined, and only a few lucky people with natural spirit root could embark on the immortal path. But actually, that's not true. The heaven is fair, giving everyone the same opportunity. It's just that, we haven't discovered it until our 7 Stars sect's patriarch, Taoist Master Shenhe, created the 7 Stars pill, which opened the door to the immortal path for all living beings. Wang Lu suddenly laughed. That's simply slapping your own face. When your 7 Stars sect sold 6 Harmonies pill and Spirit Root Development pill at a high price in the past, why didn't you mention the 7 Stars pill? Not to mention the one who made mortals cultivate to immortal cultivation world is Patriarch Lu He of the Xingjing sect. What does it have to do with your patriarch, Taoist Master Shenhe? You dare to use Xingjing sect's tiger skin? However, Mr. Zhou's response was simply jaw-dropping. Hee, that's just the common people's opinion. Actually, Patriarch Lu He is our Taoist Master Shenhe's junior brother. Most of his skills were learned from Taoist Master Shenhe. That 6 Harmonies pill and 6 Harmonies pill are actually just simplified versions of the 7 Stars pill. Although the cost is lower, the effect is not as good. Although taking the 6 Harmonies pill can also set foot on the immortal path and prolong one's lifespan, compared to the 7 Stars pill, which can make people immortal, it's far from it. However, the 7 Stars pill is the sect's treasure. How could we casually sell it to outsiders? If not for your Wang family village having a big opportunity, you wouldn't even have the qualification to know the existence of the 7 Stars pill. Therefore, in the past few years, the 7 Stars sect only sold 6 Harmonies pill to you. Wang Lu couldn't help but laugh. This Mr. Zhou was really capable. He was indeed worthy to be the publicity ambassador of this deceiving sect. He could even come up with such a nonsensical reason. What's more, in the face of this explanation, which was too much to complain about, even Wang Lu felt like a rabbit pulling a turtle. Because there was a very important issue here. The debate with this Mr. Zhou was not to refute the opposite party, but to win over the audience. The 7 Stars sect has been developing their influence in the Wang family village for a long time, and the entire spiritual energy in the village has been tarnished by them, which was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. To correct this influence, the best way was to tear off the deceiver's mask in front of everyone's eyes, exposing their true colors. Of course, there was also a simpler way. If Wang Lu had the cultivation level of foundation establishment. No, as long as he was a high-level qi cultivating stage, he could learn one or two exquisite spells from the sect, which would be enough to fool this group of inexperienced barbarians. Unfortunately, what he learned was the one sword to break 10,000 methods, and the way of the sword was specialized in defense. Although the actual combat effect was amazing, and according to his master's evaluation, its hardness was enough to make a low-level foundation establishment stage cultivator feel embarrassed. However, it was useless in this situation. Relying on the debating method to expose the scam, there was a difficulty, and that was, the audience was subjectively inclined to the opponent, and their brains were hopelessly stupid. And Mr. Zhou was undoubtedly an expert in brainwashing idiots. Just now, there was not a single word of truth in that explanation, which any regular immortal cultivator could directly refute. However, Wang Lu knew that even if he caught any point, it would be meaningless. Because the audience simply didn't know the truth. If Mr. Zhou said that Taoist Master Shen He was the martial brother of Patriarch Six Harmonies, they would certainly believe it without hesitation. However, if Wang Lu said that Taoist Master Shen He was just a lousy birdman, this group of villagers would be furious. Debating in such an environment was overwhelmingly disadvantageous to him. However, it was also because of this that it was more interesting. Because, although the situation seemed to be disadvantageous to him, the real fatal flaw was the opposite party. As everyone knew, in a qualified debate, there should be no difference in the quality of the two sides' arguments. Otherwise, if one side argued that the sun rose from the east and the other side argued that it rose from the west, then there would be no fun. And now, the Seven Stars sect undoubtedly wanted to say that the crow was white and the sun was rising from the west. Even if the audience was inclined, there was a fatal flaw in their argument. Then, as long as he found out these fatal flaws, the real face of the swindler would inevitably be exposed. And the flaw was, in fact, obvious. Why do we have to charge? Mr. Zhou was stunned. What? Since your Seven Stars sect's purpose is to deliver all living beings from suffering, to make everyone become immortals, why do you covet the mortal world's gold and silver? 1,000,000 taels of silver is a painful number for my father, but it's nothing to an immortal cultivator, right? Mr. Zhou said with a smile, it's not that I covet money, I just need you to show your sincerity. This issue could be said to be a cliché for the Seven Stars sect's publicity ambassador, and it was also a topic that could not be avoided in the development of the Seven Stars sect's business. Regarding this, Mr. Zhou had already expected it and had long studied it. Usually, people would repeatedly emphasize how passionate their sincerity was, and they didn't need money to prove it. However, for mortals, there was nothing more effective than money to prove their sincerity. Anyone could swear, but not everyone could do it with real money. The topic of sincerity could be said to be his home ground. However, the next moment, Mr. Zhou found out that the youth in front of him directly flipped the table. Sincerity? What's that? Didn't you say that because the people in the Wang family village have a great opportunity, they were favored by the sect's immortals? Since the villagers already have that opportunity, what's the use of sincerity? Mr. Zhou was suddenly at a loss for words. After a moment, he said, opportunity and sincerity, of course, both are indispensable. Otherwise, do you want our Seven Stars sect's people to beg you to become immortals? Wang Lu immediately laughed. Of course, isn't it the same in the immortal cultivation world? Disciples with good aptitude and affinity to immortality are treasures wherever they go. Each sect's reward giver elders spend a lot of effort every year to find talented people with affinity to immortality. Even if the other party is unwilling, they would still be forcefully dragged back to the sect. Is your Seven Stars sect special? Without waiting for Mr. Zhou to refute, Wang Lu further said, sincerity is mutual. The Wang family village has the sincerity to seek immortality, but your Seven Stars sect's sincerity to enlighten the world? Just a few bowls of talisman water and a few packets of Six Harmonies powder is sincerity? 1,000,000 silver coins is an astronomical number for anyone in the village, but a few packets of Six Harmonies powder is not even a drop in the bucket for you. Is this fair? Mr. Zhou was dumbfounded. It wasn't that Wang Lu's words were impeccable, but rather, he had never encountered such a problem before. How could Wang Lu give him this opportunity? Secondly, if the Seven Stars sect really wants to enlighten the world, why do we need to talk about sincerity? If everyone is fated, then let it be. If everyone is fated, then let it be. Sincerity? How much is it worth? People's hearts are fickle. Today you have sincerity, but tomorrow you might regret it. What's the use of this kind of sincerity? If your ideal of everyone becoming an immortal is true, then you should unconditionally distribute your 7 stars powder to the world's fated people. There's no need for sincerity. With that, Wang Lu put on a victorious posture, waiting for the other side to struggle. Sincerity seemed to be the home field of the 7 stars sect swindlers, but in fact, it was their fatal weakness. The swindlers might have an extravagant theoretical basis, but they would never have sincerity. Grasping this point, they would be successful in every endeavor. Moreover, the more wonderful thing was, the villagers' mentality was no longer as simple and honest as before. Gradually, they began to realize their selfishness, greed, and other negative emotions. And he used this emotion to force the opponent into a disadvantageous position in public opinion. The reason was very simple: if the villagers could obtain the so-called immortal fate at a lower cost, these people would immediately change sides. In just a moment, Mr. Zhou was already drenched in cold sweat. He had been in the 7 Stars sect for several years. Relying on his lotus flower persuasion skill, he had made great contributions to the sect. Not only did he have a very high status, but he was also bestowed the immortal fate by the sect's elder. In the past few years, not to mention this remote mountain village, he had even absorbed a prefecture city into his sect. It could be said that he had gone through hundreds of battles, but he had never encountered such a situation. Who exactly is this young man? Isn't he just a low-level disciple of the Lingjian school? Why does he give me such a strong sense of oppression? How could a mere Lingjian school have such an outstanding talent? However, at this time, he couldn't think too much about it. According to his master's instruction, if he encountered such a situation, he must immediately use his unique skill without any hesitation. People's hearts were the most fragile thing. Especially when the 7 Stars sect had yet to gain a firm foothold in the Wang family village, they didn't have enough prestige to make the villagers sacrifice their lives for the sect. Once they were incited to develop the habit of bargaining with the sect, then the sect's plan to develop their force would be greatly hindered. Therefore, Mr. Zhou put on a panicked expression, but he had already made up his mind to use his unique skill, which had a big side effect, but in a short period of time, would be successful. Mr. Zhou raised his hand, which was holding a handkerchief, as if he wanted to wipe off the sweat on his head. However, under the handkerchief, an undetectable purple-black ray of light, like a lightning, shot toward Wang Lu's throat. "Kid, if you want to blame someone, blame your bad luck for opposing my 7 Stars sect. Seeing that you're young, but your cultivation is not bad, I'm afraid you really have an affinity with immortality. Unfortunately, you still can't block my 7 Stars sect's 7 stars penetrating bone nail." Mr. Zhou's unique skill was a low-level magical tool that was given to him by the sect. Although it was only a low-level magical tool, and it could only be used once, the power of this penetrating bone nail was far beyond the imagination of mortals. A small nail could penetrate more than 1 meter thick rock. Moreover, the needle's tip was coated with a highly toxic poison. Once it touched the blood, not only the throat would be sealed, the victim's flesh and bones would also turn into mud, a horrible sight to behold. As long as he unexpectedly shot this needle, even a middle-level qi cultivating stage cultivator would find it difficult to detect it, let alone resist it. Not to mention this young boy, how could he have a middle-level qi cultivating stage cultivation? As long as he died, he could blame it on the wrath of the heavens. Although the villagers, especially that Master Wang, would be dissatisfied, under the threat of the wrath of the heavens, who would dare to disobey? With a trace of sneer, Mr. Zhou looked at Wang Lu as if he was looking at a corpse. However, at this time, he suddenly found out. The clear eyes of the youngster were looking straight at him. The corners of his mouth curled up in a contemptuous smile as he had expected. Then, a slender hand, as if he had foreseen the future, perfectly blocked the front of his throat. 2 fingers gently pinched the 7-star penetrating bone nail. His body trembled slightly. The penetrating bone nail, which was powerful enough to penetrate the rock, was stopped. Mr. Zhou was horrified. This penetrating bone nail was called a concealed weapon, but even if it was activated in front of someone, without a high-level qi cultivating stage cultivation, it would be difficult to resist, not to mention using one's body to block it. What kind of divine being is this boy? Then, an even more horrifying performance began. Wang Lu pinched the penetrating bone nail, and then, he directly put it into his mouth and chewed it. That crunching sound seemed to be pounding on Mr. Zhou's heart, making it difficult for him to breathe. When Wang Lu swallowed all the residue into his stomach, in his eyes, this young cultivator had already turned into an evil demon. Ridiculous, this power is still inferior to Aya's look up at the starry sky. Chapter 81. The easiest way to deal with a swindler was to kill him with a sword, but Wang Lu didn't want to start a massacre in Wang family village, so he didn't do it. Otherwise, with the spirit of a professional adventurer, there was no need to argue with a low-level swindler. It was like a pig rolling in a muddy pond. Do you want to jump into the mud and wrestle with it to prove that your rank is higher than it? Kill it with a sword and then eat the braised pork. The food chain's rank was enough to prove everything. However, although he couldn't defeat the opponent physically, it was the same from another angle. To kill a person, he could also kill him spiritually. What Wang Lu did now was to force the opponent into a corner with words, and then when the opponent tried to make a comeback with a unique skill, when the expectation in the opponent's heart was raised to the maximum, Wang Lu firmly pressed the opponent to death, and under the great ups and downs, completely broke the opponent's heart defense. It was not a complicated skill, and it was useless against people with strong mental strength. However, the opponent in front of him was just a third-rate swindler, so this trick was enough. Sure enough, the guy surnamed Zhou was so scared that he peed his pants. The 7-star bone-piercing nail was given by the school to the publicity ambassadors as a gift. It was used in very special situations. In theory, it could turn the tables in any situation. However, it was chewed and swallowed by the opponent like a bean. Mr. Zhou was really glad that he had just peed himself not long ago. Could a Lingjian school really cultivate such a monster? And, he didn't seem to have a high level of cultivation. Why, while he was in shock, perhaps it was God's will, or perhaps it was the outbreak of his professional spirit as a publicity ambassador. Suddenly, an idea flashed through Mr. Zhou's mind. A risky idea, but one that could save him from a desperate situation. To be honest, it was very risky to use it in front of such an opponent. However, even if he didn't use it, the opponent obviously wouldn't let him go easily. If the scam was really exposed, even if he was not beaten to death by the angry villagers, he would be killed by the school's law enforcement elder. Instead of that, he might as well try to turn the tables. Devil. Mr. Zhou suppressed his fear and said coldly. Wang Lu was stunned. What? Mr. Zhou pinched his thigh and said fiercely, Devil. You are indeed the remaining devil of the demon race lurking in 9 regions. You're trying to mislead the people and shake the hearts of the villagers to become immortals. You're trying to destroy the path of ascension of hundreds of millions of people in the 9 regions. Humph, actually, from the very beginning, I've already seen that your devil chi is awe-inspiring, and you're definitely not a good person. It's just that I didn't have any evidence. However, just now, I used the 7 Stars sect secret 7-star piercing bone nail to test you, and sure enough, I've exposed your true colors. If you were a righteous person, it was absolutely impossible to chew and swallow the penetrating bone nail. There was a strong anesthetic on it. As long as a normal person touched it, their whole body would become stiff and unable to move. However, because of the innate physique of the demon race, they were immune to all poisons. Wang Lu, when you were flaunting your prowess, you didn't expect your true colors to be exposed, did you? Perhaps Mr. Zhou's fear had reached its peak, but he had gained some courage. His words were bold, confident, and full of vigor. Not to mention that the villagers were all in deep thought. The way they looked at Wang Lu became suspicious. Even Wang Lu could not help but clap his hands. This was really like a cornered dog jumping over a wall. He came up with a brilliant plan. Inverting black and white, confusing right and wrong, coupled with this awe-inspiring righteousness. In the same sentence, if this was a debate, these words were worthless, but to fool the ignorant people, it was enough. Sure enough, under the wavering eyes of the villagers, Mr. Zhou was greatly encouraged. He continued, Wang Lu, more than 2 years ago, you left the village to seek the Tao of immortality. Now you claim to be a disciple of Lingjian school, but I didn't know that Lingjian school has accepted a disciple like you in these 2 years. Haha, does Lingjian school still need to ask you for instructions? Humph, Lingjian school indeed doesn't need to ask me for instructions. However, 5 days ago, I saw your sect leader, and I heard him personally say that the sect hasn't recruited a new disciple for 3 years. Therefore, I find it strange, where did you, a spirit sword sect's disciple, come from? I want to ask, where did the sect leader of spirit sword sect who hasn't accepted any new disciple for 3 years come from? You, just as Wang Lu was about to say something, he suddenly stopped. Because he found that the eyes of the villagers around him were full of doubt and fear. Needless to say, the devil theory put forward by Mr. Zhou had already taken root in the hearts of the villagers. Although he didn't have any evidence, and it was just empty talk, this group of villagers actually believed it. Very well, that's enough. Wang Lu sighed. It's true that there's a specialization in every field. I admit that you're a professional swindler, but even if I continue to argue, I can't convince this group of fools around me, so I'd better not say it. Upon hearing this, Mr. Zhou's heart calmed down. It would be best if the opposite party was willing to admit defeat. Looking at his amazing cultivation base, if they really quarrel, it would not be good for him. Therefore, Mr. Zhou was ready to say a few beautiful words to give the opposite party a way out. However, he didn't expect that Wang Lu's so-called admitting defeat was just a prelude to flipping the table. The next moment, Wang Lu took a step forward and spat out a needle-like small sword from his mouth. That small sword rotated in mid-air and then quickly elongated to about 3 feet long. The sword's body was simple and heavy, and the edge of the sword flickered, making people shudder. The wrestling with the pig in the mud had come to an end. Wang Lu's entertainment interest had been exhausted, so the next step was to use the human method to solve the problem. Sure enough, killing you is the easiest way. Wang Lu took a step forward and wielded his sword. The sword light was like lightning. Although non-phase sword art specialized in defense, and non-phase sword bone's strength and speed bonus was not high, and at the same time, his 7th level Qi cultivating stage defensive power was almost comparable to a foundation establishment stage cultivator, his attack power was not as good as a 9th level Qi cultivating stage cultivator. However, all of this was based on the premise that he was compared with the disciples of Lingjian school. If he was compared with those so-called cultivators in 9 regions, even if it was just a defensive specialization of Wang Lu, his attack power was already strong enough. When the sword was thrust, Mr. Zhou did not have any reaction, it was too late. Although he could barely be considered as a cultivator by taking the 6 Harmonies powder and Spirit Root Development Pill, after many years of hard work, he was still in the 8th level Qi cultivating stage. His other aspects were even more tragic. Not to mention an elite disciple like Wang Lu, even a Xiantian stage martial artist could easily kill him. It was precisely because of this that Mr. Zhou brought an assistant to the Wang family village. These days, that assistant was low-key, even Wang Lu did not notice his existence. But at the critical moment, buzz. With a buzzing sound, the sword of Mount Kun suddenly stopped, because in front of the sword tip, an unexpected face appeared. Tisk, TSK, old friends meet in this way. Although the sword in Wang Lu's hand stopped, it did not move back even an inch. The sword tip almost touched that person's forehead. Xiaohu, I haven't seen you for more than 2 years, but you've become a lot fairer than before. The sword tip was pointed at Wang Xiaohu, whom he hadn't seen for many years. However, the so-called fairer face was, of course, nonsense. After being pointed at by Wang Lu's sword of Mount Kun, Wang Xiaohu was already scared to death. However, after several years of experiential learning in the Seven Stars sect, Wang Xiaohu had indeed grown up. Facing the murderous intent of Wang Lu, Wang Xiaohu not only didn't flinch, but also boldly said, "Wang Lu, it's not too late for you to turn back now. Although you've been possessed by the devil, our Seven Stars sect can still give you a way out, as long as you're no longer stubborn." After hearing this, Wang Lu almost laughed out loud, but the expression on his face was even more frightening. "Xiaohu, although I used to laugh at you for being a retard, even if you're a retard, you should know what you're doing, right? You've been in the Seven Stars sect for so long, can't you see what kind of people they are?" Wang Xiaohu's body trembled, but a moment later, he loudly said, "The Seven Stars sect is a righteous immortal cultivation sect, the future of the immortal cultivation world, and the hope for us, the masses of mortals, to embark on the immortal cultivation path. In the past 3 years, I have been taken care of by the Taoist immortals to embark on the immortal cultivation path. Although my cultivation is not high and my cultivation is very bitter, I have changed my destiny. I'm no longer an ordinary farmer in the mountain village, but a dignified cultivator. And now, I hope that the people around me can also live such a life. The Seven Stars sect is willing to help me, for a low-level disciple like me to develop here. My heart is only grateful, never doubting." Wang Lu's eyes widened in surprise. "Xiaohu, I haven't seen you in 3 years, but your shamelessness has improved a lot. What you said is really good. Then, please get out of here." With that, his right wrist moved, and the sword of Mount Kun was about to thrust forward. However, at this time, Wang Lu was pulled back by someone. "You evil creature, how long are you going to be so fierce?" If it was someone else who pulled him back and questioned him, Wang Lu would have probably turned around and slashed them with his sword. However, at this time, he couldn't do it. Because the person behind him was his father. "Dad, didn't I tell you to sit still?" Wang Lu was really helpless. He withdrew his sword and looked at his father with a wry smile. "If I sit like this, do you want me to watch you personally slaughter your own people?" Master Wang, who has always been kind, was furious. He pulled Wang Lu with one hand and pointed at his nose with the other. "I don't know what you've experienced in the past 2 years, but what's the difference between you and a devil?" Wang Lu smiled. "How could a devil be as handsome as me?" Master Wang said, "Come with me." After that, he reached out and pulled Wang Lu out of the door. Wang Lu smiled. He understood his father's intention. He thought that there was no hurry to kill a pig, and it was not worthwhile to delay him from reminiscing with his family, so he followed. Although there were a lot of people around the house, they were deterred by Wang Lu's fierce power, so no one dared to stop them. Phew, we're saved. Inside the house, Mr. Zhou and his assistant Wang Xiaohu breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. They knew that they had finally passed today. However, this matter would not end here. They had to report to the sect as soon as possible and come up with countermeasures. "Mr. Zhou, Xiaohu, are you okay?" Several concerned village women broke the awkward and silent atmosphere in the house. Then, the villagers asked about their well-being and criticized a certain evil person who carried a sword to commit murder. "Sigh, I really don't know what sin Wang Fugui's family has committed to give birth to such an unfilial son. That's right, I used to think that Wang Lu was not a normal person. Yeah, he often said some inexplicable things, completely different from other children. It's like he took the wrong medicine." Listening to the complaints of the villagers, Mr. Zhou and Wang Xiaohu looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Although the process was really a bit too thrilling, the result was not bad. These idiots had no idea what they were doing. Or, they were so stupid that they didn't want to know what they were doing. Chapter 82. On the other side, Wang Fugui pulled his son back home. At home, Madame Sui was preparing lunch and walked out of the kitchen with a pot of hot soup. Suddenly, she saw her husband rushing back, and she couldn't help but be shocked. When she saw the youth following behind her husband, the pot of meat soup that she was carrying immediately slipped out of her hand and fell down. At the same time, a figure in red and white suddenly sprinted over and caught the pot of soup with one hand. "Tisk, mother, be careful. If this steaming hot soup falls on your feet, it will become a real pig's trotter soup." "Brat, you're talking nonsense." Master Wang snappily slapped him in the face. Wang Lu let out a laugh, and then he heard his father's painful groan. "Why is your head so hard?" "Huh, I have a high IQ." As he spoke, Wang Lu held the hot pot with one hand and put it on the table under his mother's surprised gaze. His mother, Sui Shi, looked at Wang Lu's hand carefully. "Is your hand okay?" "Don't worry, it's fine even if I burn it." With that, Wang Lu's gaze turned to his father and his expression became unusually serious. "In the end, I'm already an immortal cultivator." Old Master Wang and his wife stared blankly at the young man in front of them who had changed too much after leaving home for more than 2 years. For a moment, they were speechless. After a long time, when Wang Lu went straight to the kitchen to stir-fry the rest of the dishes, he brought them out one by one and sat on the table. Only then did Old Master Wang let out a long sigh. "Sigh, what's going on?" Wang Lu thought for a moment. "Do you want to hear the details or the short version?" Sui Shi moved her mouth and wanted to say something, but after looking at her husband, she forced herself to hold it in. Old Master Wang stared at his son sternly. "Tell me the short version first." "Oh, I succeeded in becoming an immortal and returned home in glory, but I saw a group of evil sect swindling my family, so that's what happened just now." Sui Shi was a little uneasy. "Just now, what happened just now?" "Hey, don't interrupt." Old Master Wang asked again, "You said you succeeded in seeking immortality?" This time it was Wang Lu's turn to be puzzled. "Dad, I've been sending a letter home almost every month for the past 2 years. Didn't I write about my experience in Lingjian school quite clearly? Other than a few shameful things that I didn't say, I didn't hide anything else." Old Master Wang was even more shocked. "What letter? Have you ever written to your family in the past 2 years?" The atmosphere at the dining table became even colder. After a long time, Wang Lu asked in disbelief, "Haven't you received any in the past 2 years?" "Never." "Damn it. Who did this?" Wang Lu had been surprised too many times today, so he was not surprised at all. Sure enough, SF Post is unreliable. In any case, it's a business under the name of the Wuxia League. Please don't let down this brand. The so-called SF Post was a large-scale postal agency under the name of the Wuxia League, funded by the mysterious Sky Mansion, and managed by the Wuxia League and several other large organizations and sections. Its main business was to communicate between the immortal world and the mortal world. This was because a flying sword and a psychic talisman were enough to solve most of the communication needs between cultivators. Letters between mortals were handled by courier stations in the mortal world. However, the communication between the immortal cultivation world and the mortal world lacked effective management. It was not until the establishment of the Wuxia League that the world became peaceful and the control of the immortal cultivation world over the mortal world became deeper and deeper. Relying on the golden signboard of the Wuxia League, the SF Post had an unparalleled competitive advantage. It rapidly expanded in the 9 regions, and its network was everywhere. However, because of its monopoly position, the service quality continued to deteriorate. It was just that, Wang Lu didn't expect it to be so serious that he couldn't even deliver a single letter for more than 2 years. Wait a minute, this doesn't seem to make sense. Even if the service is passive, I have written at least 50 letters in the past 2 years. If I can't even deliver one, it's a bit. Wang Lu thought that something was wrong. It seems like the outside world's information has been intercepted by the 7 Stars sect. Blocking the information is indeed a common trick of the cult. Otherwise, as long as the villagers have some common sense about the immortal cultivation world, they would not be deceived by those low-level swindlers. Wang Lu shrugged. Forget it, if the letter can't be delivered, then it can't be delivered. If you have any questions, just ask me. Master Wang asked, more than 2 years ago, you said you wanted to go out to seek the immortal cultivation world. What happened later? I asked Zhong to go with you, but why didn't he come back? It's a long story. To sum it up, Wang Zhong and I have been accepted as disciples by the Lingjian school. For more than 2 years, we have been practicing on the mountain and have been on the right track. Now, we can be considered as immortal cultivators. Because of the sect's organization, I went out to gain experiential learning, so I took the opportunity to go home to visit the two of you. As for Wang Zhong, he has his own plan. Wang Lu casually said it, but after those words, Master Wang's heartbeat obviously doubled. His wife, Sui Shi, widened her eyes in disbelief and asked with a trembling voice, "Little Lu you really sought the immortal cultivation world?" Suddenly, in the heart of this simple and kind-hearted woman, countless stories and legends about the immortal cultivation world and the mortal cultivation world surged. She was happy for her child's boundless future, but there was also a faint trace of sadness. A moment later, her eyes turned red. Master Wang scolded, "You woman, little Lu stepping on the immortal cultivation world is a blessing that can't be obtained in several lifetimes. Why are you crying?" "I'm just too happy." Sui Shi wiped her tears. I'm going to cook 2 more side dishes. I didn't expect Lu to come back, so I didn't prepare his dishes. After saying that, she stood up and left. Master Wang snorted and explained to Wang Lu, "I don't know which storyteller your mother heard some time ago, saying that immortals are not human, that they don't recognize their own relatives, and that there are even some who kill their wives to prove their Tao and other such shocking things. It just so happens that you haven't been home for so long and haven't written a letter, so she has been worried that you have already forgotten about us. Alas, now that you have met us, what is there to worry about?" Although he said that, there was a trace of worry hidden in his eyes, but he quickly covered it with a smile. "Lu you said that you have sought the immortal cultivation world, then, what is the immortal cultivation world? Can you?" Wang Lu smiled, "Can I show you a few skills to open your eyes? To calm your heart? Otherwise, you will never believe that I have really cultivated to the immortal cultivation world? Ha ha ha, you are indeed worthy to be the well-known Wang Baiwan in the Wang family village. Your cautious spirit of seeking proof is worthy of praise." Master Wang was somewhat embarrassed by his son's words. He suddenly slapped the table. "Kid, what kind of attitude is that? Hee, don't be angry." "But Dad, I have to explain to you that the so-called immortal cultivation world is not like the acrobatics of the 7 Stars sect, where the fancier the better. You are a frequent visitor to the county town, so you should have the ability to distinguish this. When it comes to acrobatics, they may not necessarily be better than the professional entertainers in the city." Master Wang sighed. "Who said that's not true? Although that 7 Stars sect's boast is good, and they do come up with some real things, but, compared to their boasting, it's still far from it. Of course, it's just a lowly swindler organization. They don't even have the qualification to join the outer circle of the Wanxian League, so how could they have any real things?" "Well, Dad, I won't keep you in suspense. Don't you want to see the real immortal cultivation world? Although my cultivation is still shallow, and I don't have any immortal cultivation world, fortunately, I have a treasure with me." With that, Wang Lu opened his mouth and spat out the needle-like sword of Mount Kuan. This spiritual treasure spun in mid-air, turned into a 3 feet sharp sword, and then steadily stood on the table. Master Wang had seen this flying sword-spitting mouth skill once in the courtyard, but now that he saw it up close, he still felt that it was incomparably magical. However, those acrobatics artists in the county town seemed to have a similar skill, such as swallowing a sword and so on. I'm not here to show you the flying sword-spitting mouth. Autumn Beam, say hello to my dad." The sword of Mount Kuan was silent for a moment, and then it trembled and issued a buzzing sound. After a while, This buzzing sound showed a strange rhythm, and gradually, it became like a human voice. "Hello, I am Wang Lu's sword spirit, Autumn Beam." Huh. Old Master Wang was really frightened this time. A long sword could actually speak human language. Who's talking? The other one who was scared was Sui-Shi, who had just come out from the kitchen with a plate of stir-fried food. Startled, the dish began to free fall again. Wang Lu reluctantly lifted the sword of Mount Kun and thrust it backward. The tip of the sword just happened to reach the bottom of the dish, steadily catching it. "What do you think, Dad?" "Is there a reply?" Master Wang frowned. "Well, although it's different from what I imagined, it's indeed more reliable than the 7-star sects." Wang Lu shrugged. "Dad, comparing me to the 7-star sect is too degrading. Although your son cultivates the simple and unadorned immortal cultivation world, and temporarily can't release fireworks for you to see. However, those who can only release fireworks and soak in talisman water, even if there were 100 of them, I would still pinch them to death. You can rest assured about this." Feeling the faintly discernible killing intent in those words, Master Wang's heart could not help but be startled. This kind of imposing manner was something that he had only seen in those veterans who had experienced the battlefield in the county. Even if it was just a slight touch, it would make people's hair stand on end. Actually, Wang Lu's so-called killing intent, compared to a real senior cultivator, was still very immature. It was nothing more than the several experiential learning in the small clear sky peak, where he brewed a bit of fierceness from killing countless monsters. However, in the mortal world, it was a killing intent that accumulated from mountains of corpses and seas of blood. After all, even if a mortal world's martial artist had experienced mountains of corpses and seas of blood, what could they do to a few rank 3 monsters? And long before Wang Lu's immortal cultivation method was successful, he had already killed rank 3 monsters to play with. "Hey, tell me and your mother the story of your Lingjian school immortal cultivation method." Wang Lu frowned. "Okay, that's a lot to tell. Life on the Spirit Sword Mountain was actually very monotonous. In addition to immortal cultivation, experiential learning, and being a top student, there wasn't much worth mentioning." However, Wang Lu had been talking non-stop for more than an hour. Even though the food on the table had already turned cold, the old couple still listened with relish. However, before Wang Lu could talk about his second year of life, a burst of noise came from outside the house, interrupting the conversation of the family of 3. Master Wang and his wife looked at each other, and a trace of uneasiness rose in their hearts. However, Wang Lu, whose 6 senses were 100 times sharper than the 2 old people, had already heard the noise outside clearly. He could not help but sneer. "Unexpectedly, in the end, I still couldn't avoid walking on this road. Shameless B***tch. With that, he stood up and reached out to grab the sword of Mount Kun. Master Wang was shocked. "Lu, what are you doing?" "Someone came to die, so I casually took their head." "Dad, just sit there and don't move." "Mom, you too, the next scene might be a bit inappropriate for children." "Wait a minute, Lu, don't rush." Wang Lu shook his head. "Don't worry, I won't target the villagers. Although they are retarded, they are still my fellow villagers. Just think of it as raising a nest of disobedient huskies. But there are some people who hide behind the crowd, treating them as a human wall. If I don't kill them, I won't be able to think straight." Master Wang opened his mouth to persuade again, but Wang Lu said, "Some things, it's better to cut the Gordian knot with a knife. My temporary patience in the courtyard is a typical negative example. Instead, it gave this group of fools the courage to provoke me. If I continue to endure, I'm afraid that one day, I won't be able to stop myself." With that, he smiled and weighed the sword of Mount Kun in his hand. "Sister Autumn Beam, what do you think?" Autumn Beam was silent. After a long time, the sword trembled. An instigator should be killed. Chapter 83. The spirit of the sword of Mount Kun, Autumn Beam, was an earth element sword spirit, with a gentle and indifferent temperament. The earth was the mother of all things. In the fairy tales, the earth was often entrusted with the meaning of mother, symbolizing tolerance, gentleness, harvest, and so on. Compared to the explosive fire element and the sharp metal element, the earth element sword spirit usually had the image of a good person. However, this autumn beam, after a moment of silence, uttered the word kill. However, if he saw the noisy scene outside the house, Autumn Beam's word kill suddenly seemed reasonable. Catch that devil. Kill him. The Taoist immortals said that he will bring bad luck to the whole village. A group of about 20 to 30 angry villagers gathered outside Master Wang's house. Holding farm tools, kitchen knives, bricks, and other things, they loudly shouted slogans. The crowd was in high spirits. However, Wang Lu's eyes didn't stay on this group of ignorant people for even a moment. As soon as he went out, he locked his eyes on the two people who were surrounded by the crowd. They were dressed in light blue robes and had the demeanor of an immortal. Needless to say, these villagers were naturally incited by someone. Otherwise, in his more than 10 years of living in the Wang family village, Wang Lu had never seen this gentle and comfortable village suddenly erupt with such a strong hostility. The instigators were, of course, the two middle-aged men from the Seven Stars sect. Through the subtle changes in the surrounding spiritual energy, Wang Lu quickly determined that these two people belonged to the Taoist immortals of the Seven Stars sect, which meant they were real cultivators. For cultivators who had entered the right path, the spiritual energy in their inner mansion formed a cycle, and the inhalation and exhalation of the surrounding spiritual energy was as natural as breathing. If one's observation skill was strong enough, they could analyze the cultivator's basic cultivation level and even the spirit root's attribute through the other party's throughput, rhythm, breathing composition, and so on. Of course, for a big sect like the Lingjian school, they would generally teach their disciples the method to hide their cultivation level. However, for a small sect like the Seven Stars sect, it obviously wouldn't be so detailed. When the two light blue cultivators appeared, Wang Lu immediately saw through them. Second grade and third grade Qi cultivating stage trash TSK, no wonder they used such underhanded methods. Just now, when he brandished his sword of Mount Kun at the Seven Stars sect's publicity envoy, Wang Lu thought that the Seven Stars sect's reinforcements would soon arrive. However, he didn't expect that the reinforcements were just two high-level Qi cultivating stage trash. Even more, he didn't expect that these two people would actually use the villagers as human shields. Why would the gentle and magnanimous Liang Qiu be angry? Because if the earth element sword spirit was said to be broad-minded, then the ignorant villagers who were fanned over were exactly the group that she wished to protect. As for the two Seven Stars sect cultivators, they were undoubtedly the pollutants that destroyed the earth. Even Mother Earth would not show any mercy to pollutants. I'll skip the opening remarks. You two, please die here. Although initially, Wang Lu didn't want to create a massacre in the Wang family village because this green and auspicious land couldn't bear too much blood, but now, with his current cultivation level, he still couldn't use the spring breeze and rain method to silently erase the traces of the Seven Stars sect's existence. The Seven Stars sect, this malignant tumor, had been deeply rooted in the village for more than 2 years. If he wanted to uproot it, he would inevitably have to bring along a few pieces of intact flesh and blood. There was no other way, so it was a necessary sacrifice. Wang Lu sneered, strode forward, and directly bumped into the human wall. Catch him. Don't be afraid, with the Taoist immortals behind us, this devil is nothing to be afraid of. That's right, we have the talismans from the Taoist immortals, so our strength has greatly increased, so we're not afraid of any devil. Several strong men were the most courageous. Especially with the Seven Stars divine talisman on their back, their brute force increased by 10 times, even more powerful than the village's old ox. Seeing Wang Lu came out, they hastily reached out to grab him, wanting to gain credit in exchange for the favor of the Seven Stars sect's Taoist immortals. However, just as their thick palms touched Wang Lu's clothes, an irresistible counterforce came and bounced them away. A few strong men clenched their teeth and reached out to try again. However, their entire arms were numb and powerless from the rebound. Wang Lu continued to move forward. The several strong men didn't have enough time to reach out their hands, so they stuck out their chests and tried to block him with their bodies. However, just as they touched the opposite party, an even stronger shock force directly sent them flying. Although it wouldn't kill them, it also wouldn't allow outsiders to touch him. Like an inviolable king, wherever he went, he was invincible. Oh, what's going on? The devil is using a demonic technique. Black dog blood, quickly go find black dog blood. Virgin urine is also fine. Oldly, can you do it? F***ck your mother, I, your father, am only single, not a virgin. Amidst the quarrel, the crowd became a mess. This was the power of the 7th level Qi cultivating stage's non-phase golden bell cover. When the non-phase sword art was not enough to block all the attacks, the non-phase heart sutra could be used to refine the surrounding spiritual energy, turning it into a protective shield that reflected all the external force. And if the non-phase golden bell cover was also broken, he could use the non-phase sword bone to resist it. However, even the outermost layer of the non-phase sword art was enough to give a foundation establishment cultivator a headache, so it was not easy to break through 3 layers in a row. Along the way, Wang Lu was invincible. He didn't even look at the people around him who were used by other people. He just strode forward, and before long, the crowd was smashed into pieces. When had the villagers ever seen a real cultivator? Soon, they fell into panic, and under this panic, they were even more unbearable. Before long, the 2 7 stars cultivators who were hiding among them were revealed. The 2 of them were surprised, but they still didn't panic. Because Wang Lu didn't hide his cultivation level, a low-level Qi cultivating stage cultivator was clearly displayed there. The 2 high-level Qi cultivating stage 7 stars cultivators naturally didn't need to panic. Although they looked stronger than ordinary low-level Qi cultivating stage cultivators, low-level Qi cultivating stage cultivators were still low-level Qi cultivating stage cultivators. In the immortal cultivation world, a higher cultivation level was a world of difference. Not to mention 2 high-level Qi cultivating stage cultivators with magical tools, how could they not be able to deal with one person? Boy, surrender without a fight, we can spare your life. The one who spoke was thin, his face was blue, his voice was hoarse, and he looked like a drug addict. However, between the 2 of them, his cultivation level was higher, and his status was also more respected. He belonged to the 7 stars sect's 4 stars emissary, which was 2 stars higher than the publicity envoy surnamed Zhou. The 7 stars sect wasn't a big organization with a deep background. High-level Qi cultivating stage cultivators could already be considered as the backbone of their strength. As for the 5 stars elder, they only needed to be at the foundation establishment stage. Not long ago, these 2 people received the Wang family village's publicity envoy's SOS talisman, so they flew from hundreds of miles away with their magical tools. After hearing about the matter, they completely disregarded the publicity envoy's obstruction and immediately brought dozens of villagers to act as human shields. However, now it seemed like they were making a fuss over a minor issue. He was just a low-level Qi cultivating stage cultivator. Although he was young and had a promising future, in a fight, the one with a good future would not win. To deal with him, there was really no need to dispatch 2 4 stars emissaries. As for the publicity envoy's dissuasion, it was even more unreasonable. What was there to be afraid of? Boy, didn't you hear what I said? On the other side, the slightly fat cultivator impatiently urged. In his view, even if Wang Lu's cultivation level was only low level, he could still distinguish that his and his senior brother's cultivation level was much higher than his. If he still didn't surrender, did he still expect to make a comeback? He put on an aggressive appearance, but with a gap of 2 levels, what could a low-level Qi cultivating stage cultivator do? If he didn't show him some colors, he wouldn't know how powerful he was. Therefore, without waiting for his senior brother to speak, the fat cultivator took a step forward and activated his mana, spitting out a mantra, freeze. This was the body freezing technique, which used mana to bind the opponent's body. If the degree of strength used was light, it could paralyze the opponent's body, rendering them unable to move. If the degree of strength used was heavy, even the heartbeat would be locked, turning it into a one-hit kill technique. A high-level chi cultivating stage cultivator's mantra was enough to freeze a mad elephant. However, Wang Lu just sneered. Idiot. Then he took a step forward and swept the sword of Mount Kuan horizontally, sweeping towards the fat cultivator's cheek like an iron rod. Ha! The body-freezing mantra was completely ineffective. The fat cultivator was taken aback, and the opponent's sweeping sword made him even more puzzled. Wasn't he clearly a cultivator? Why did he use the skills of a mortal world's martial artists? This kind of attack that didn't contain any heaven and earth spiritual energy, what was the point of a high-level chi cultivating stage cultivator? Freeze. With another mantra, the fat cultivator's mana in his inner mansion turned into an invisible barrier, covering the surface of his body. Although it couldn't be seen, it was actually stronger than an iron plate. Even the ballistae guarding the city would find it difficult to penetrate it, let alone this. Bang. With a bone-chilling sound of flesh and bone breaking, the fat cultivator was sent flying like a piece of straw. His fat head had turned into a mangled ball of flesh and blood. It fell to the ground and twitched a few times before becoming motionless. Junior brother. The pale-faced cultivator was horrified. Just now, he clearly saw that Wang Lu's sword sweep was just an ordinary sword move. There was no reason for it to break his junior brother's protective spell. Idiot. Wang Lu took another step forward, twisted his waist, and the sword of Mount Kuan drew a ruthless arc, sweeping out again. Move. The pale-faced cultivator didn't dare to block it. With a shout, his body flashed several meters away. At the same time, he raised his right hand and summoned a cloud of purple smoke from his sleeve, floating towards Wang Lu. Ridiculous. Wang Lu simply didn't care what spell the opposite party used. In any case, he had the golden bell shield and the non-phase sword bone. His defense and resistance had been piled up to an outrageous point. A mere high-level chi cultivating stage cultivator was immune to any spell. Thereupon, facing the purple mist, Wang Lu charged forward. The mist containing the highly poisonous insect was sucked into his body, and then, there was nothing else. The pale-faced cultivator spurted out a mouthful of black blood. That purple silk morning heart insect was a middle-rank level 3 goo insect, enough to poison everyone in the Wang family village to death. Moreover, it still had a lot of room for growth. He used his own life essence to refine it, preparing it to attack the foundation establishment stage in the future. However, just now, when Wang Lu sucked it in, 60% of the goo insects were quietly eliminated. He didn't even have the time to avoid the backlash. Seeing Wang Lu's sword sweep over, his whole body was paralyzed and unable to move. However, even though he knew it was useless, the pale-faced cultivator still made a struggle. Solid, solid, solid. 3 layers of solid body technique in a row almost swept away the inner mansion of the pale-faced cultivator. However, with 3 layers of iron plates superimposed, he was confident that he could block it. Unfortunately, don't you have a good memory? Bang! Blood splattered. Even if there were 9 layers of seal, the sword of Mount Kuan was still an 8th-rank spiritual treasure. A mere solid body technique was simply meaningless. After killing 2 7-stars cultivators with 2 sword strikes, the irritation in his heart was slightly reduced. Wang Lu sneered and swept his eyes around. The villagers suddenly wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves, and before long, they all scattered. Really disappointing. I thought it was an elite monster, but it turned out to be a gray minion. Wang Lu shrugged and turned around to go back to his house. Wait a minute, stop. Turning around, he saw that the pale-faced cultivator was still alive and conscious. The big wound on his head caused by the sword of Mount Kuan was gurgling with blood, but the wound was quickly healing. As a miscellaneous cultivator, to have this kind of ability was worthy of praise, but at this time, Wang Lu was not in the mood to praise him. Boy, you are really powerful. The magic tool in your hand is really powerful. The pale-faced cultivator covered the wound on his head with one hand and sneered, unfortunately, you are still a bit inexperienced. Now, hand over that sword. Otherwise. His other hand was grabbing a 12 or 13-year-old girl. She was the girl who came to watch the fun when the villagers gathered to make trouble. Wang Lu still remembered her name. Dr. Wang's daughter, Wang Lijuan. She was quite sensible and capable at a young age. When her father treated people, she often helped him and was praised by Wang Lu as the head nurse of the Wang family village. However, she had a bad habit. She liked to watch the fun too much, and now she was suffering her retribution. Hey, be a good girl and take out all the good things in your hand, or I will kill this girl. Wang Lu was very puzzled. Wang Lijuan was not his family's child bride. She was only 13 years old. No matter how he pushed her, it would be against the law. Who would hand over the treasures for her? Using her as a hostage to threaten him, wasn't that stupid? Oh, don't pretend to be indifferent. I heard from Zhou Mingrui that you have a deep feeling for this village. It is impossible for you to watch the villagers die. Wang Lu sighed, so you use this to threaten me? So what? The pale-faced cultivator was already crazy. Hand over the sword in your hand. I know that it is the magic-breaking effect of the sword. It can break 3 layers of my spells, so it is at least a high-rank magic tool. High-rank magic tool. You really don't have a little imagination. Wang Lu couldn't help but feel sad for these low-rank cultivators. In their eyes, high-rank magic tools were probably the pinnacle of tool refining, and they had nothing else to ask for. However, why do you think you are qualified to threaten me? If you have the ability, then try to hurt her. The pale-faced cultivator was stunned for a moment, but then he clenched his teeth and decided to cut a piece of meat from this little girl's body to open his eyes. However, just as he was about to make his move, he found out that he couldn't move at all. His body seemed to be tied up, unable to move. Wang Lu's right hand was holding the sword of Mount Kun, but his left hand was tightly holding something. Watch carefully, this is the real high-rank magic tool, flowing cloud silk. The pale-faced cultivator had felt that a wisp of silk was coming from all directions to wrap around him, binding him more and more tightly, almost to the point that he could not breathe. Rest assured, I won't kill you today because I want you to go back and tell the 7 Stars sect's elder and sect leader that if you don't want me to destroy your sect, then get out of the Wang family village, as far as you can, and never let me see you again. Although the pale-faced cultivator was frightened, he also felt a trace of joy. He actually managed to escape with his life. The next moment, however, he felt his lower body was cold, and then an even colder voice came into his ears. You can avoid the death penalty, but you can't escape the punishment. You dare to lay your hands on a less than 14 years old girl. You better practice the Bai Xia sword art. Chapter 84. In the eastern Wei prefecture of the Great Ming country in the Blue River region, on the top of a barren mountain, there was a mysterious altar. Several elderly cultivators gathered here, looking a bit restless. What happened in the Wang family village? An old man wearing a purple robe with 6 blood-colored stars embroidered on his chest asked with a sinking voice. Another 6 Stars elder was also quite uneasy. We lost 2 4 Stars emissaries, and even the local publicity envoy was killed. Could it be that we provoked a powerful enemy? I've already told you that in the White Moon country, we all have to be careful, but you guys still want to expand. Sure enough, you kicked an iron plate, didn't you? That's easy for you to say. If we don't expand, wouldn't our sect's several thousand disciples have nothing to eat? The several old men began to discuss, each sticking to their own point of view. Before long, their faces turned red. At this time, a voice suddenly came from midair. Don't quarrel. I've just told Pan Qingfeng what happened. They did encounter a powerful opponent. Although young, his strength is unfathomable. Moreover, He has many high-rank magical tools and claims to be a disciple of the Spirit Sword sect. The several 6 stars elders looked at each other. Lingjian school? Have you ever heard of this sect? Or rather, which of the Spirit Sword sects that I've heard of could teach such a disciple? Many high-rank magical tools. In our 7 stars sect, only the 6 stars elders have this kind of financial resources. A relatively calm elder analyzed, at least in the Blue River region, there are 5 sects named after the Spirit Sword sect. Among them, 4 of them are worthless miscellaneous sections. Their sect leader is barely at the foundation establishment stage, and their disciples are even more unbearable. They're simply not worth mentioning. The other one is in the Shanluan country, whose size is similar to our 7 stars sect. Their sect leader seems to be in the Shudan stage. Although it's hard to believe, it's not impossible to cultivate a genius disciple. Shanluan country's Lingjian school? I'm really lucky to be able to meet a genius disciple. Nowadays, the good seedlings are basically monopolized by the sects of the Union of 10,000 Immortals, making it more and more difficult for us individual investors to survive. Alas, we've been reduced to the point of developing our forces in the wilderness. Alright, what's the point of complaining about this now? Those Wanxian League sects are arrogant and look down on us rogue cultivators. Even if they have man-made spirit roots, the grade of it is far higher than our 7-star spirit roots. Us 6-star elders would at most be outer sect disciples or even servants in their sections. We might as well go out and work on our own. Speaking of which, don't you think the name Lingjian school sounds familiar? What's so strange about that? This is one of the most common names in the world of cultivators, right? No, I mean, it seems like the Union of 10,000 Immortals has a 5 uniques, which are the top 5 sections. One of them is called Spirit Sword sect. Do you think that disciple is? Before he could finish his words, the elders felt a chill run down their spines. At this moment, the voice in the air was slightly hesitant. It can't be, right? How could that kind of high and mighty sect have anything to do with us? Moreover, if we really provoke a disciple of that sect, to put it bluntly, we're already finished. We'll either be refined into 10,000 spirit blood pearls, or we'll simply be patted into a sesame seed cake and eaten. Hee hee, it's really terrifying. Sect leader, it's not that exaggerated, right? There's no enmity between us, no matter what. The voice in the air sneered. Do you think the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League will reason with you? If you really offend one of their disciples, the elders will immediately come to your door. A few years ago, when a disciple of the Royal Soldier sect went out to wander, he took a fancy to a female cultivator. As a result, another high-rank sect's disciple snatched his love away. The Royal Soldier sect's disciple was young and his cultivation base was shallow, so he couldn't compete with him. After being injured, he returned to the sect. Originally, this kind of thing was not a big deal in the immortal cultivation world. However, on the same day, the Royal Soldier sect dispatched 3 Yuanying stage elders to help their disciple regain his face. It is said that that high-rank sect was almost exterminated by the Royal Soldier sect. One can imagine what kind of face those big sects have. Now that we can talk nicely, that Wang family village youth shouldn't be a disciple of a very prominent sect. An elder enthusiastically suggested that being the case, we might as well send someone to capture his relatives and coerce him to work for us. The nearby elder sneered. Do you want to die? Didn't sect leaders say that he might not have any background? Why would he need a background? Isn't he alone not enough? He's less than 15 years old, yet he can already kill 2 of our 4 stars emissaries. If we give him a few more years, he can single-handedly exterminate our entire sect. How could he be that terrifying? Don't scare yourself. Hey, in recent years, sects like our 7 stars sect have been single-handedly exterminated by a certain genius youth. How many of them? A lot of elite disciples of big sects like to use sects like ours to practice their skills. Seeing that the elders were about to quarrel again, the voice in mid-air was full of helplessness. Enough, stop quarreling. Then, sect leader, in your opinion, what should we do? Let's wait and see first. Our people should withdraw from the Wang family village. At this time, it's not wrong to be cautious. Withdraw? But, we've been in the Wang family village for more than 2 years. That village is a rare place with rich spiritual energy, which is very beneficial to our cultivation. Yeah, although the Blue River region is big, the Heavenly Cave Paradise has basically been occupied by the Wanxian League. The Wang family village is really rare. Enough, do you think I don't know what you're talking about? But now is not the time to be greedy for the Heavenly Cave Paradise. Only by preserving our lives can we cultivate. However, that doesn't mean we should give up on the Wang family village. Like I said, let's wait and see. If things go smoothly, perhaps we don't need to make our move, and the matter will naturally be solved. Don't need to make our move? What does that mean? On the other side, with his low-level Qi cultivating stage cultivation, he bravely and invincibly repelled the 2 high-level Qi cultivating stage cultivators from the 7 Stars sect. While he was at it, he also took away the glib-tongued envoy. However, Wang Lu wasn't able to win back the village's former peace and harmony. Of course, this wasn't unexpected. That door had already been destroyed, and happiness would never return. That was the logic behind it. Wang Lu wanted to solve the matter with the least cost, but unfortunately, he couldn't avoid the massacre. Of the 2 4 Stars envoys, one was dead and the other was injured. The publicity envoy's tongue was cut off, and he died without a complete corpse. The 7 Stars sect soon withdrew their forces from the Wang family village, but what they left behind was a mess. After operating for 2 years, the 7 Stars sect's forces have long been deeply rooted in the Wang family village. The theory that everyone can become an immortal was deeply rooted in the people's hearts. When the 7 Stars sect withdrew, people suddenly felt that their immortal path was severed, and they were filled with sorrow. And the culprit was undoubtedly Wang Lu, who left the village 2 years ago to seek the immortal path, but ended up becoming a devil. Suddenly, no one knew how many people secretly cursed him. Alas, good people don't get good rewards. Facing the early morning sun, Wang Lu leisurely lied in the courtyard. His hand was holding the egg pancake that his mother just made, and he gently nibbled it. He was very relaxed. On the other side of the courtyard, Master Wang was clumsily practicing a set of martial arts, which was taught to him by Wang Lu. It was known as the Immortal Body Forging Fist, which could prolong one's life. Originally, Master Wang was too lazy to practice it. How could prolonging one's life be more important than sleeping late in the morning? Unfortunately, he couldn't resist his wife's urging, so he had to go to bed early and get up early every day. His heart was really incomparably complicated. Hearing his son's complaint, Master Wang was also helpless. The villagers were deceived, don't blame them. Rest assured, we're also immortal cultivators, so we won't go so far as to argue with a group of commoners. But, if this goes on, we won't be able to stay in this village anymore. While saying that, Wang Lu looked up at the sky. There were a few white clouds floating in the blue sky. It was a rare good weather. However, in the eyes of the void spirit root cultivators, they could see the withered yellow color of the village. This time, it was not caused by an external force, but rather, the village itself had rotted away. One of the 7 Stars sect's Taoist immortals was dead and one was injured. The publicity envoy died without a whole corpse, his tongue was minced. Logically speaking, this should be enough to deter those ignorant villagers. However, as Wang Lu expected, after the massacre, in addition to fear, there was resentment, as well as doubled ignorance. The villagers cursed the devil for wreaking havoc, thinking that it was Wang Lu who ruined the Wang family village's beautiful future. Then, they hoped that the heaven would open its eyes and strike him with a lightning tribulation, or that the 7 Stars sect's higher-level Taoist immortals would descend to the earth and subdue Wang Lu. Then, they would continue to spread the immortal fate in the village. In short, although the 7 Stars sect's people were gone, the situation didn't improve. This village is hopeless. Wang Lu sarcastically concluded. Think of a way. Master Wang wiped his sweat. Aren't you known as the successor disciple of the 5 uniques? If you can't even solve the problem of a small village, what kind of successor disciple are you? Dad, you're being prejudiced. I, the successor disciple, am not here to be a caring sister to the ignorant villagers. If they are willing to die from stupidity, why should I stop them? My sword is only used to fight against a strong enemy. Come on, you just don't want to care about it. Master Wang snappily said, didn't you say this time's trip down the mountain is the sex experiential learning? Just take this as an experiential learning. Actually, the solution to this problem is very simple. As long as you can make those swindlers admit that they're swindlers, the villagers have no choice but to believe it. Wang Lu froze for a moment. Yes, this idea is feasible, but the next problem is, where do I find those swindlers? They've long been scared by my illustrious reputation and fled 3,000 miles away, right? Moreover, they're a small-scale gang, and their sect leader is probably at the foundation establishment stage or above. I might not be able to deal with them alone. Old Master Wang finished the last fist technique and answered while panting, as for what you want to do, that's your own business. I'm just an ordinary mortal. You're asking me, but who am I supposed to ask? Wang Lu uttered an "oh" sound, lay back on the recliner, and then rocked it with a creaking sound. At this time, Sui Shi came out of the house with a pot of tea and a towel. Seeing that her husband was seriously practicing, she gently smiled. Master Wang sighed with emotion at having a good wife at home, and then he remembered something. Oh, right, you've been practicing in the Spirit Sword Mountain for so long, you should have made some friends. If you can't do it, you can ask your friends to help you. Friends? Upon hearing this, Wang Lu deeply frowned. That's why I have to go back to the mountain in the next 2 days and find a few friends who can fight to help. Dad, Mom, you two must protect yourselves. That night, Wang Lu made a decision. He temporarily said goodbye to his parents and went back to the mountain to find a few able-bodied men. At the same time, in order to ensure his safety, he used his cloud thread to lay a super simple array around the courtyard. Because he didn't deliberately study it, it was almost at the level of a layman. However, it was enough to deal with the ordinary villagers. As for the 7 stars sex counterattack. Autumn Beam, please take care of the family. I will do my best. I also know that letting a tool spirit with 9 layers of seals fight alone is a bit too much, so, when it's time for you to explode, just explode yourself. Don't feel bad. Of course you don't feel bad. I'm in pain. Women are meant to be loved. After saying goodbye to his parents, Wang Lu spurred his horse to go over the mountain ridges. It only took him 2 days to return to the Spirit Sword Mountain. He ran like a dead dog. The Spirit Creek town at the foot of the Spirit Sword Mountain was still the same desolate scene. Without the economic pull of the Immortal Gathering, the Spirit Creek town immediately returned to its original state. However, the town's residents obviously didn't care about whether the town was prosperous or not. They still lived their comfortable life in an orderly manner. As the residents of the Lingjian school, these several hundred people were neither cultivators nor ordinary mortals. Each of them had a rich story. If one carefully dug out. There was no time to dig out this kind of irrelevant side story. In big strides, Wang Lu rushed into the core building of the Spirit Creek town, the Ru family inn. Lady Boss, are you there? *T, what are you shouting for? It's not easy for me to fall asleep. The lady boss behind the counter weakly threw the rag in her hand. Didn't you go out for experiential learning? Why did you come back? Did your IQ drop? Seeing the familiar face, Wang Lu was pleasantly surprised. Sister Ling. *T, don't call me that disgusting. Who's your sister Ling? The lady boss lazily raised her eyelids, but when she saw Wang Lu, she suddenly froze. Not only was he travel-worn and tired, this was the first time the lady boss saw the hesitation on Wang Lu's face. Obviously, this youth had a big problem in his heart. Because he couldn't solve it by himself, he came back to the mountain, to ask for help. However, this guy has been in the sect for 2.5 years, has he ever been stuck by a problem? He really hasn't. This time, he only went down the mountain for a little more than a week. What exactly happened to him that gave him such a big blow? Little Ling Er frowned. She fully invoked her more than 30 years of life experience. Little Wang Lu, could it be that you are lovelorn? Chapter 85. Wang Lu, are you lovelorn? Huh? The lady boss propped herself up from behind the counter. Her face was brimming with gossipy enthusiasm. After you went down the mountain, you met a beautiful mortal world woman, and you planned to bathe in the river of love. However, the path of a mortal and mortal is different, so you couldn't give her the happiness she wanted. Therefore, you had no choice but to part with her, but your heart still couldn't let her go. Is that it? Are you in heat recently? Don't talk nonsense like this. Wang Lu snappily scolded. However, there is one thing that you said. This time, I did encounter some trouble when I went down the mountain. Therefore, I want to see if you can mobilize a few helpers. Trouble? Little Ling Er was even more surprised. You actually encountered trouble? That's probably a big trouble. Hurry up and tell me so I can be happy. Wang Lu slapped the counter. Bring me the wine. With the help of the wine, Wang Lu continued to scold her and told her about his encounter in the Wang family village. The result was, ha 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 ha. You were actually abused by a group of country bumpkins. Is there a need to be so frustrated? F***ck, how could this woman be so gentle and considerate? Unfortunately, Wang Lu really couldn't refute her, because, rather than saying that he lost to the 7 Stars Sect's lowly people, it was better to say that he lost to the Wang family village's group of low-ability villagers. If they had a bit of brain, they wouldn't drag Wang Lu down so much. Inwardly, he was very annoyed. With Wang Lu's temper, how could he be so tolerant? Although in the end, he still killed to his heart's content, scaring the simple villagers to the point that they pissed their pants. However, for Wang Lu, that was already the result of him trying his best to suppress it. It wasn't that he was violent and bloodthirsty. He was just good at solving problems in the simplest way. When dealing with scammers, one should kill them all with one strike of the sword. However, in his hometown, everything he did was tied up. Wearing a condom was really uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. Unfortunately, that was his own home, so he couldn't not wear it. Therefore, the current compromise is to capture that 7 Stars sect leader and bring him to the Wang family village to explain everything. If the culprit confesses, those villagers would have nothing to say, right? The lady boss frowned as she ate the stir-fried broad beans. I don't really understand the problem of this kind of cult, but I always feel that your plan is a little unrealistic. F***ck, you're just a third-rate boss with a daily turnover of over 10,000. What qualifications do you have to evaluate my proposal? The lady boss was so angry that her chest was about to explode. If you look down on me like that, then don't ask me. You look like a bitter child that no one wants. You came to me for comfort, and now you're throwing a tantrum to me? Wang Lu slammed the table. Who's asking for consolation? Don't think too highly of yourself, no, think too highly of yourself, okay? While they were arguing, another person came in. Sister Ling, I've prepared the things you want. They're in. Huh? Senior Marshal Brother Wang Lu? Wang Lu turned around. Wen Bao? Why are you here? The person outside the door was Wen Bao. Carrying a big pig, he stood at the door with a slightly awkward expression. Don't block the door, come in. When the lady boss invited Wen Bao into the house to put down the things, she explained the reason. It turned out that after the experiential learning began, the other disciples had already chosen their target location, but Wen Bao was hesitant to make a decision. Because no matter which location he chose, it seemed to be too difficult for him. Wen Bao's cultivation was different from the common inner court disciples. He walked a relatively extreme path, which was somewhat similar to Wang Lu's, except that he was extremely proficient in attack. Before he went down the mountain, Wen Bao's black iron sword art had reached the maximum level, and he was currently practicing the real immortal sword art, Mountain Breaker Sword. At the same time, his chi cultivating stage had also reached the peak of the 8th level, and his output was very terrifying. Even high-level chi cultivating stage senior martial brothers would be amazed by it. But other than that, he had nothing else to offer. On the other hand, training in the Mountain Gate was all about comprehensive ability. Wen Bao seriously racked his brain and made an evaluation of every suggested location. He felt that even the simplest one was quite dangerous for him. Therefore, Wen Bao simply withdrew. Because he couldn't go up the mountain, he temporarily lived in the Spirit Creek town at the foot of the mountain, and waited for the summons of his teammates. Teams were allowed to form for experiential learning, and the final report could also be written together, but a team was limited to 2 people. As for multiple teams moving at the same time, it was also possible, but it was inevitable that points would be deducted if the report was repeated. Wen Bao worked for the lady boss while waiting for the summons of his teammates. In the words of the lady boss, it was just eating and waiting for death. In the end, he really waited. Senior martial brother Wang Lu, why didn't you call me when you left? The fatty was full of grievances. That year, the 2 of them went through the Azure Dragon Gorge together, and they had a lot of tacit understanding. They thought that after this experiential learning, their offensive and defensive combination would be able to continue their glory, but in the end, Wang Lu flew alone. It was depressing. But, why did you come back? Wang Lu thought that since he had nothing to hide, he told the story again. After listening to it, Wen Bao's face was filled with indignation. That 7 Stars sect is really hateful. They actually dare to bully Senior Martial Brothers' hometown, it's really unbearable. The lady boss commented, really? I think those villagers are even more hateful. How could they be so stupid? They would rather believe an inexplicable outsider than Wang Lu. In any case, we've lived together for more than 10 years, yet they actually thoughtlessly regarded Wang Lu as a devil. Wang Lu snorted. How could he not think so in his heart? Compared to that group of swindlers from the 7 Stars sect, those villagers from the Wang family village annoyed him more. They were obviously good people, but after not seeing them for more than 2 years, how could they become so stupid and ignorant? However, Wen Bao took it as a matter of course. They're just some villagers, so it's normal for them to be stupid. If they're not stupid, how could they manage them? The more stupid they are, the better. Wang Lu and the lady boss were silent. They were deeply shocked by Wen Bao's understatement. It seems like it's quite reasonable. The lady boss chewed a mouthful of broad bean and vaguely commented. Wang Lu also nodded. It's really not something that a person with his level of intelligence would say. His words are crude, but the truth is not crude. It's a famous saying. Wen Bao embarrassedly said, actually, it was my father who told me this. I didn't understand its meaning before, so I just simply wrote it down. Oh, no matter what, you're the son of the state teacher, so you do know something. Hee, senior martial brother, you flatter me. If you don't mind, can we team up? Team up? Wang Lu was stunned for a moment and then began to carefully size up Wen Bao. Actually, it's not impossible. In any case, we're lacking people, so it's good to have more able-bodied men. If we want to flatten the 7 Stars sect, I alone am not enough. Right. Wen Bao was in high spirits, but he soon realized a problem. What's the approximate level of the 7 Stars sect? Wang Lu said, a low-level sect doesn't even have the qualification to register in the Wanxian League. The sect leader is, at most, a Shudan stage cultivator. Wen Bao was petrified. His whole body was completely frozen. Senior martial brother, what did you say? What stage is the sect leader? Shudan stage, humph, he's not even at the King Pill level. Wen Bao spat out a mouthful of blood. Senior Marshal brother, you're just a low-level chi cultivating stage cultivator. Where did your sense of superiority come from? No matter how bad he is, he's still a shoot-on stage cultivator, a shoot-on stage cultivator. His magical power circulation has been compressed into a single point, so whether it's quality or quantity, he's more than 100 times higher than us, you. Wang Lu sneered. You think too much. More than 100 times is the level of our Lingjian school's shoot-on stage cultivators. For a low-level shoot-on stage cultivator like the 7 Stars sect, it's already amazing if they can reach 10 times higher. Don't forget that principle. When a spirit sword sect disciple goes down the mountain and meets a low-level cultivator, their cultivation level must be increased by 1 level, which means, low-level chi cultivating stage can be converted into low-level foundation establishment stage. Wen Bao was about to go crazy. That's just a very irresponsible and simple formula. Moreover, the applicable range is between the foundation establishment stage and the king pill stage. For people like us, who haven't entered the sect for a long time, we don't have enough accumulation to challenge a higher level cultivator. Not to mention, a low-level chi cultivating stage cultivator is just a low-level foundation establishment stage cultivator, which is a big gap from a shoot-on stage cultivator. Wang Lu said, but I'm a successor disciple, so it's not a problem for me to increase another level, right? Have you woken up yet? So what if you're a successor disciple? You want to increase another level? Do you think you're Lu Li or Zhu Shiyao? Thinking of those 2 evildoer successor disciples, Wang Lu had to explain again. You see, my non-phase method's defensive power is amazing. At least in terms of defensive ability, it can be considered as a shoot-on stage cultivator, right? How could there be such a shameless algorithm like you? Even if it's a higher level challenge, it's still 2 levels higher. Moreover, what's the use of having an amazing defensive power? Do you want to be a sandbag for other people? That's why I want to catch a few successor disciples. But in the end, I only caught you, so I can only make do with it. Don't look for me for this kind of suicidal thing. I still want to live for a few more years. Speaking of which, your skill in ridiculing has improved recently. It's all because of you, senior brother. It's been like this since the experiential learning in the small clear sky peak. Every time, it's as if you want to force people into a dead end. Wang Lu and the lady boss looked at each other in dismay. They found this almost hysterical Wen Bao interesting. Good, from now on, you're called the awakening type Wen Bao. What awakening type? Why does it sound like I can't live for more than 10 minutes? In short, your concern is reasonable. If the 7 Stars sect really has a shoot-on stage cultivator as I expected, the 2 of us alone are not enough. At this time, the lady boss interrupted, not to mention the 2 of you, even if you let the other 2 successor disciples form a team, a shoot-on stage opponent would be very difficult to deal with, so, Wang Lu smiled. So, the lady boss suddenly felt a chill on her back, as if she was possessed by something unclean. So, Sister Ling, this time, I'll have to trouble you to help me. You see, as an outsider, even if you join the team, you don't have a spot. Moreover, there was no moreover. Sister Ling resolutely said. I don't want it. Wang Lu was taken aback. Really? Why? You're just idling in the restaurant. What do you mean idling? That's really rude. It's obviously the same level as the Misty Peak cafeteria, so it's useless to deny it. You actually put me and that Western Continent dog chef on the same level. Let me tell you, if you want me to help, there's no way. Upon hearing such a resolute answer, Wang Lu chuckled. Wen Bao, you go out first. What? Okay. The fatty didn't ask any more and quickly ran out. Therefore, he was very lucky that he didn't hear the conversation in the inn. Master, please lend your disciple a hand. Damn, you're using this trick again. Master, please lend me a hand. You. Okay, I promise you. Enough, don't burn the incense for me. Chapter 86. In short, for various reasons, our wise and great sister Ling has decided to team up with us to conquer the Seven Stars sect. Outside the inn, under Wen Bao's unsurprised gaze, Wang Lu introduced his new companions. The illegitimate daughter of the Lingjian School's sect leader, the lady boss of the Spirit Creek town, and the top martial arts grandmaster, Miss Feng Ling. The lady boss's face showed waning interest. Okay, stop playing around. Let's finish this so I can go back to sleep. Oh, I mean, run my inn. Now that you've formed a team, do you have a plan for what to do next? Of course, the next step is to directly flatten the Seven Stars sect's headquarters, capture the sect leader, and let him go to the Wang family village to apologize and explain everything to the villagers. And then, I don't care what the village bumpkins think. Where's the Seven Stars sect's headquarters? How would I know? *T, if you don't know, why are you still playing around? I'm going back to sleep. Don't worry, if you don't know, you can check. Wang Lu sneered. Following the vine to the melon is very easy. Where is the vine? Of course it's the same old place, the Wang family village. The lady boss was surprised. Haven't you already found all the Seven Stars sect's people in the village? The lotus root is still connected. Where did the lotus root come from? Forget it, the Wang family village, right? It's not far from here, right? I'll say this in advance, my ability is only effective in the Blue River region, so. I understand, the Feng Shui vein node in the Blue River region. Rest assured, I brought you here to increase our fighting power, not to hold us back. The Seven Stars sect is just a low-level sect, so their headquarters is not too far from the Wang family village. Wang Lu's so-called lotus root is still connected soon opened the eyes of the lady boss and the others. For days later, the group arrived at the Wang family village from the Spirit Sword Mountain. That night, under the command of Wang Lu, the upright and sincere lady boss did a despicable business. She went deep into the house and kidnapped the villagers. Moreover, in accordance with Wang Lu's instruction, she used a coarse hemp rope to tie the hostage into a dumpling. The rope was quite tight, making the hostage's face turn red and purple like a roasted lobster. Hey, I think this binding method might kill someone. Carrying the hostage on his shoulder, the lady boss carried him all the way out of the village and placed him on the peak of the Dog-Ear Mountain. She really couldn't understand Wang Lu's intentions, so she simply gave him a reminder. Wang Lu didn't explain much. He walked straight to the hostage and took out the rag in his mouth. Then, paw! With a single slap, Wang Lu knocked out half a row of teeth. Then, he said, if you don't want to die, then don't court death. Seeing that we're from the same hometown, I actually don't want to kill you, Xiaohu. Wang Xiaohu, who was tied up like a lobster man, was filled with panic. It took him some time to recognize Wang Lu's voice. Brother Wang Lu, don't kill me. The voice was a little leaky and weak. Wang Lu said, I'll ask you a few questions. I'll let you go after I answer them. And do you know where the Seven Stars sect's headquarters is? No, I don't know. Only my master, who is a 4 stars emissary, is qualified to know the location of the main altar. Your master? Who is it? It's He Tan, the cultivator that you killed that day. In addition to your master, who else do you know in the Seven Star sect? Zhou Mingrui is the publicity envoy that you killed. Other than that? I haven't been in the sect for long, so I don't know much. Speaking to this, Wang Xiaohu trembled with fear. He feared that because he was useless, Wang Lu would kill him to vent his anger. However, when he looked sideways, he found out that Wang Lu's eyes were as cold as the moon, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion. In the past few days, did anyone from the Seven Stars sect come to look for you? Ah, yes. Who? A 2 stars disciple that I don't know. He took the initiative to find me and showed me his sex token. And then? He told me not to act rashly. The sect doesn't intend to be your enemy, but I have to keep an eye on the situation. Once there's a change, I have to inform him. What did you do? I didn't say anything. Even when some villagers proposed to look for trouble with your father, I tried my best to dissuade them. Enough. Where is that contact person? He said that in the next few days, he is hiding outside the village, peacefully cultivating. If you want to find him, you need to use a special magical tool. I hid him in my house, and only I can find him. With that, Wang Xiaohu looked at Wang Lu with an expectant gaze. If he could take this opportunity to make Wang Lu let him go. The lady boss asked, "Do you need me to search for him?" Wang Lu shook his head. No need. Moreover, with your intelligence, it's very difficult to find him. Then, Wang Lu took a deep breath. Under the light of the Emperor Bone, the 206 sword bones trembled, bursting out an unusually strong suction force. With his chi cultivating stage cultivation base, he once again used this absorption method. Compared to a few months ago, his strength had increased several times. The surrounding spiritual energy was bound by a huge suction force. It madly gathered together, forming an invisible stormy wave. As a human pillar, Little Ling Er didn't feel this, but the two cultivators beside Wang Lu were horrified. Senior Martial Brother Wang Lu, this is the mental cultivation method that when Bao cultivated could be considered to be big and open, and it could absorb a lot of spiritual energy. However, when he breathed in and out spiritual energy, the range of influence was at most 10 meters around him. Moreover, the repulsive force of spiritual energy was also very strong. Being able to absorb 10% of the spiritual energy was already not bad. However, just now, Wang Lu stirred up the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within a radius of more than 100 meters. In that split second, he breathed in and out spiritual energy, which reminded Wen Bao of the Taoist Master King Pil's deep meditation in the sect. He was only a low-level chi cultivating stage cultivator. How could he breathe in and out spiritual energy so intensely? In the eyes of the other cultivator, Wang Xiaohu, this scene shocked his mind and almost made his mind collapse. Relying on the 6 harmonies powder and spirit root cultivation, he became an outer disciple of the 7 Stars sect more than 2 years ago. After 2 years of painstaking cultivation, with the full support of his father, he barely reached the 9th level chi cultivating stage and learned how to breathe in and out spiritual energy. Under full effort, he could draw a wisp of spiritual energy into his body, like a trickle. According to his master, this was already a pretty good achievement. If he persisted, he would be able to reach the foundation establishment stage in his lifetime. However, just now, Wang Lu breathed in and out. Even if he painstakingly cultivated for 2 years, he still wouldn't be able to catch up. Was this a real cultivator? If real cultivators were like this, then his 2 years of hard work was nothing. For a time, he didn't know how much grief and indignation bubbled up in his heart. However, this had nothing to do with Wang Lu. He breathed in and out spiritual energy at this time, not to show off how awesome his void spirit root was. In fact, this was a great irony for him. A massive amount of spiritual energy entered his body, but only 1% remained. Instead, it was to use the drastic change in spiritual energy to find something. The void spirit root's innate keen sense of touch allowed Wang Lu to quickly capture a trace of subtle change in the tide of spiritual energy. I got it, come with me. At the same time, somewhere in the mountain forest, Wei Wenqing, who was cultivating his sect's Heart Sutra under the rare bright moonlight, suddenly opened his eyes. Strange, is it an illusion? Why do I feel like there's a change in the spiritual energy? For cultivators with man-made spirit roots, especially those with inferior quality like the 6 harmonies spirit roots, it was extremely difficult for them to detect the changes in the spiritual aura of heaven and earth. Sensing and absorbing the spiritual aura was like a blind man touching an elephant. It was just that, the change just now was too intense, so no matter how slow their perception was, they would still be able to detect it. Wei Wenqing thought for a moment and decided not to take the risk, so he temporarily stopped his meditation. For an outer disciple of his level, one more day of cultivation or one less day of cultivation really made no difference. So, this task of monitoring was really boring. As a 2-star disciple, he didn't know much about the Wang family village, but he vaguely knew that this was a place rich in spiritual energy. After the sect accidentally discovered it, they planned to develop this place as a strategic location for the sect's resurgence in the future. It was just that a few days ago, a major accident happened. He didn't know the specifics, but he heard that someone died. Could it be that the change in spiritual energy just now was caused by a fellow disciple who died with grievances? Feeling the gentle night under the moonlight, Wei Wenqing laughed at himself. In any case, he was a cultivator, why did he have to scare himself? If he really met a little demon, he might not be his opponent. But waiting like this was really too boring. Why not take advantage of the night to explore the village? Looking at the village in the daytime, there were a few village girls who were elegant and refined. They really didn't look like they were from a remote mountain village. It would be too much of a pity to let a group of rough mountain men take advantage of them. It would be better to let him have a taste of the soup. At the same time, he could ponder the dual cultivation method. Thinking of this, Wei Wenqing's body suddenly became hot. However, the next moment, a simple and unadorned long sword was placed on his neck. It made his whole body quiver, and cold sweat suddenly gushed out like a fountain. Then, a ghost-like voice came from behind him, "Ha, I found a small fish." Punched and kicked, tied up, and tortured to extort a confession, it was too horrible to look at. Through the interrogation of Wei Wenqing, more facts were exposed. The 7 Stars sect was indeed reluctant to part with the Wang family village. For this kind of low-class sect, the rich spiritual energy in the Wang family village was a priceless treasure that they yearned for even in their dreams. However, the 7 Stars sect was also frightened by Wang Lu's 3 killings a few days ago, so they didn't dare to rashly move forward. However, when they heard that Wang Lu had left a few days ago, the 7 Stars sect's greed began to stir. One of the elders, who had spent the most effort in the Wang family village, sent several 2 Stars disciples to wander around the village as a lookout. Unfortunately, this was a bad move. These lookout minions not only didn't play their due role by sending valuable information back to the 7 Stars sect's headquarters, but instead, Wang Lu caught the clue and followed the clue to get to the melon. "Tell me, where's your 7 Stars sect's headquarters?" Wei Wenqing was tied up like a fried dough twist. His face was covered with blood, and his eyes were half panic-stricken and half vacant. After listening to Wang Lu's interrogation, he groaned for a long time, and his voice was broken. However, Wang Lu still understood his meaning. "Oh, you said you don't know. A 2 Stars disciple doesn't have the qualification to know the location of the sect's headquarters, and you're just instructed by a 4 Stars emissary. Fine, your chicken feather sect is so complicated. Tell me, where's that 4 Stars emissary?" Wei Wenqing groaned for a while, and then looked at Wang Lu with despair mixed with hope. "Marquis County? I can't believe you're this straightforward." Under the dim light of the night, looking at the already cold corpse on the ground, the lady boss sighed with emotion. "I thought you would at least spare his life." Wang Lu was silent for a moment. "Actually, I did think about sparing his life. I just let him be in a coma for a few days. When he wakes up, the matter has already been resolved, and a small fry like him won't be able to stir up any trouble." The lady boss was curious. "Then why did you?" I hesitated for a moment. "I didn't control my strength well. Who would have thought that this guy is so fragile?" Wang Lu shook his wrist and sighed with emotion. The lady boss said, "This guy's death is really unjust. But, this is also good. If he really ran back to report, the 7 Stars sect would retaliate against the Wang family village." Who knew that Wang Lu actually sneered? If the 7 Stars sect really has the guts, they would have made their move when I went back to the mountain to look for him. Not to mention, if they could really kill a few villagers to vent their anger, that would be a good thing. This group of idiots in the village won't shed tears until they see the coffin, so I'll let them see the coffin. Unfortunately, it's not convenient for me to do it myself. The lady boss felt a chill down her spine. You're really ruthless to the Wang family village. Wang Lu sneered. I used to be a gentle and amiable cultivator like you, until my knee was shot by an arrow. All of this was brought upon by those idiots in the village, and I've already done my best. The lady boss faintly sighed. That's not the case. Wang Lu, I think you're a bit extreme. Extreme? Extreme is good. Isn't this experiential learning in the sect to sever our ties with the mortal world? If I don't go extreme, how could I sever my ties with the mortal world? You're simply misinterpreting it. Wang Lu was impatient to argue with the lady boss. He snapped his fingers. Wen Bao, explain it to her. Wen Bao was flattered to be entrusted with such a heavy responsibility in the face of danger. He quickly said to the lady boss, Sister Ling, this time you're wrong. You must know that the ignorance of ordinary people comes from their nature, which is deeply rooted and cannot be eliminated. To these fools, you should be as ruthless as your senior brother. Otherwise, they will drag you down to the same level, and then use their rich experience to defeat you. So, don't treat them as human beings. They don't deserve to be human, they're just pigs, dogs, and insects. As the saying goes, the heaven and earth are heartless, treating all living things as straw dogs, that is. Wen Bao was about to continue talking, but when he turned around and saw the lady boss's cold eyes, his confidence immediately dropped by 90%. That is to say, you must eliminate the sympathy and pity for the fools, and use the attitude of a tool to rationally and objectively manage them, so that their lives have a little bit of insignificant value. Being stared at by the lady boss's cold steel-like eyes, Wen Bao's voice became more and more timid. Finally, his voice was even fainter than the chirping of the insects in the mountain, and then disappeared. Unfortunately, even if she defeated Wen Bao, the lady boss couldn't shake Wang Lu's mind. Only when he was in a good mood would he be easy to talk to, but once he was angry, he would be exceptionally stubborn. However, it was no wonder that he would be angry. After listening to his story, even she was filled with anger. The combination of a liar and a fool, if it happened to others, would be a joke, but if it happened to her, it would be a tragedy. Therefore, for now, she would just take one step at a time. If he really did something outrageous, she would just knock him out with a punch and directly carry him back to the Spirit Sword Mountain. Chapter 87. Early the next morning, the three of them arrived at Marquis County. Marquis County was an insignificant small county in the Great Ming country's eastern prefecture, but it had a population of more than 10,000 people. Moreover, a long time ago, Marquis County was the battlefield where the Wanxian League fought against the wild beasts. Because of this, the surrounding spiritual energy became turbid and chaotic. In such a place, trying to find Wei Wenqing's contact person was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Fortunately, there was always a way out. Wang Lu soon found the way. Do you know where the 7 Stars Sect's immortal teacher is? On the commercial street of Marquis County, Wang Lu stopped a local vagrant, gave him a few silver coins, and got a satisfactory answer. The 7 Stars Sect's immortal teacher is in the county master's house. He's the county master's VIP. Just like that, the answer was revealed. It was far smoother than expected. After sending the vagrant away, Wang Lu nodded with satisfaction. Not bad, it seems like the people of Marquis County do have some knowledge. The lady boss asked, what do you mean? Didn't you notice? He's also a 4 stars emissary. In the Wang family village, he's called a Daoist immortal, but here, he's just an immortal teacher. Moreover, he's only the county master's VIP. Obviously, cultivators are not rare here. At least, people have this knowledge. The lady boss nodded. This place used to be an ancient battlefield, so there should be a lot of cultivator legends passed down. Therefore, the local people are not unfamiliar with the immortal cultivation world. So, what are you going to do next? Do you want to directly go to his door and interrogate him? Wang Lu was surprised. How could you have such a stupid idea? Right now, you don't even know his name, and whether he has other companions or not. You only know that he's a 4-star emissary. If you just rush forward like this, you'll be wiped out. You're simply a man of courage but no strategy. I really don't want to be judged as a man of courage but no strategy by a fool like you. Although she said that, the lady boss respected Wang Lu's opinion. Because the current Wang Lu was obviously a professional adventurer. His eyes were clear, and his mind was calm. After leaving the Wang family village, his mood gradually eased, and his way of thinking also returned to his usual rhythm in Spirit Sword Mountain. This kind of Wang Lu was trustworthy. In other words, we have to test the waters first. That's right. It's rare that the enemy is out in the open while we're in the dark. It would be a waste if we don't take this opportunity to probe them. Wen Bao, we need you to make an appearance now. Wen Bao, who had just bought 2 steamed pancakes from a roadside vendor, was stunned. Me? That's right. Go to him directly and say that you're a wandering cultivator who is passing by this place and intends to stay for a period of time. Greet the local master and then take the opportunity to investigate him. Wen Bao only felt that the flatbread in his mouth was a little hard and astringent, and it was difficult for him to swallow. Senior Marshal Brother, isn't this mission a little too difficult? F***CK, you're an inner disciple of one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League. What's so difficult about dealing with a few lowly people? Now that my identity has been exposed, I can't casually show myself. Sister Ling has no cultivation, so she can't pretend to be a cultivator. Who else can do this besides you? Wen Bao was still hesitating when Wang Lu took out his trump card. Junior sister you, she, okay, Senior Marshal Brother, I got it. I'll go now. He swallowed the 2 steamed pancakes in one gulp. With the spirit of facing death calmly, the fatty raised his sword and rushed to the county magistrate's yard. Stop, who are you? How dare you? Before the 2 burly men guarding the courtyard could finish their reprimanding words, they had no choice but to swallow the rest of their words. The fat man in front of them was not tall but had a very large body. There was a wisp of flame burning on his fingertip. The color changed from red to green, and then from green to white. Although it was just an acrobatic skill, it fully showed his identity. An immortal cultivator. Marquis County was not like the Wang family village, a remote village that had never seen the world. Hundreds of years ago, this place was one of the battlefields where the Wanxian League fought against the tide of wild beasts. Immortal cultivators were not too rare, and occasionally, there would even be perfected cultivators passing by. But, cultivators were cultivators after all. They were not people these 2 lackeys could offend. Excuse me, why are you looking for my family's master? The fatty put away the magical ability on his fingertip. Inwardly, he couldn't help but feel proud. Even though for a spirit sword sex cultivator, this little trick was simply insignificant, and even for him, who specialized in one sword to break 10,000 methods and walked the path of a sword cultivator, his other spells were a complete mess. However, in the mortal world, this trick could still be used to bluff people. More importantly, he knew that Senior Marshal Brother Wang Lu would never be able to use this trick, because Wang Lu was even more extreme than him. Wang Lu had already reached the 7th level of Qi cultivating stage, but he didn't even know a single immortal spell. I'm not looking for your family's master. I'm looking for the 7-star sex immortal cultivator. The fatty tried to make his voice as deep and powerful as possible, in order to play the demeanor of an expert. According to his senior brother, the 7-star sex cultivators here were at most high-level Qi cultivating stage. Even though they were much higher than him, if they were to fight in close combat, his black iron heavy sword would be able to split them into 2 halves. There was nothing to be afraid of. The 2 guarding martial artists looked at each other, and then the one on the right nodded. Please come with me. Right now, there was only one 7-star sex cultivator living in the county magistrate's courtyard, as well as a number of handymen and servants. That martial artist carefully led Wen Bao all the way to the main room. However, before they reached the door, they heard a voice coming from inside. "Yuan-san, didn't I tell you not to bother me if there's nothing important?" That martial artist named Yuan-san immediately broke into a cold sweat and knelt down. Reporting to Immortal Master, there's an Immortal Master passing by here. He said he's looking for you, so, oh? Immortal Master passing by? Bring him in. Yuan-san quickly stood up. He didn't dare to look at Wen Bao, who was behind him, as he tremblingly walked forward. When he reached the door, he lowered his head and didn't dare to move. Wen Bao's face sank, and his heart was slightly uneasy. Just now, that person's voice seemed to have a special power that could shake people's mind. This was strange. How could a low-level qi cultivating stage cultivator have this kind of ability? However, he had already walked to the door, but the opposite party still couldn't clearly see his existence. It seemed like the opposite party didn't have a profound cultivation. With a trace of nervousness, Wen Bao entered the room. Then, he was blinded. Inside the room, there was indeed that 7 stars sex cultivator. His hair and beard were grizzled, and he looked a bit older than expected. However, there were also 3 to 5 young women, dressed in simple clothes, and some of them were even naked. They clustered around that cultivator's side. They were panting, and their eyes were watery. That cultivator's pair of palms continued to wander around that warm jade soft body, setting off pieces of spring scenery. What was even more surprising was that there was an enchanting and charming woman who was sitting on that cultivator's body. Their lower body was tightly joined together, and when they moved, they made a sound that could make people blush. Unexpectedly, they didn't even try to avoid other people. This pink scene immediately made the fatty's face flushed, and the little bit of momentum that he managed to muster up with great difficulty disappeared like running water. He believed that even if senior brother Wang Lu was here, he would also be blinded by this scene. What the hell was this 7 stars sex cultivator doing? What the hell was he doing in broad daylight? Oh, sorry for making a fool of myself. That cultivator chuckled, pushed away the woman who was entangled with him, and then waved his hand to signal them to leave. Then, he slowly put on his clothes and asked with interest, "Fellow Daoist, why are you looking for me?" Wen Bao sorted out his thoughts, cleared his throat, and was about to open his mouth when he was suddenly stunned. Because he clearly saw that on that 7 stars sex robe, there were 6 neatly embroidered stars. 6 stars elder? Where's the promised 4 stars emissary? Where's the promise that I can split a mere high-level qi cultivating stage cultivator in half with my sword? Isn't a 6 stars emissary an expert in the foundation establishment stage? Moreover, it's very likely that he's a middle-level foundation establishment stage cultivator. Not to mention me, even if it's senior brother Wang Lu, I'm afraid you don't have a 100% chance of winning, right? What the hell is this? Cold sweat immediately seeped out of his forehead. However, Wen Bao, after all, had received more than 2 years of formal education in the Spirit Sword Mountain. Suppressing his throbbing heart, he earnestly saluted that person. "I'm Wen Bao, a loose cultivator who just passed by this place. Because of my cultivation needs, I plan to stay here for a while. I heard that the 7 stars sex immortal teacher lives here, so I came to pay a visit to avoid any misunderstanding." "Oh," that 7 stars sex elder lazily responded with a sound, and then sized up the fatty in front of him. Before long, he waved his hand. "I understand, you're called Wen Bao, right? At such a young age, it's not easy for you to reach the low-level qi cultivating stage, so you shouldn't be an ordinary loose cultivator. But, it doesn't matter, our 7 stars sect has a wide range of friends. As long as you don't stir up trouble, you can stay here as long as you want. Of course, there are some rules that must be obeyed. I hope we can get along well." With that, he moved his hand. Wen Bao felt his vision blurred, and then a piece of yellow paper appeared in his hand. On it, there were some simple rules that he was not unfamiliar with. First of all, it was an overview of the principles. For example, the host and the guest must respect each other. When encountering a dispute, they should mainly mediate and avoid fighting as much as possible. Then, it was a general convention to deal with some difficult miscellaneous diseases. For example, if a treasure was found in the local area, the guest must not hide it without authorization, and must inform the host. At the same time, the host has the priority to purchase the treasure. If the guest has a special demand for the treasure, the guest must pay a certain price and compete with the host for the treasure. These were the rules that were established after the establishment of the Wanxian League to mediate the disputes between the sections. Now, after a long period of development, it has been further refined and perfected into a very complex knowledge. However, in practice, it was often defeated by the rule that the fist is the truth. He didn't know where this 7 Stars sect copied this set of rules, but it was actually quite decent. Wen Bao roughly skimmed through it, and after promising to seriously abide by it, he observed the other party's reaction. That cultivator seemed to be impatient and didn't doubt his identity. It seemed like he was being overly suspicious. A cultivator from a mere 9th-rate sect couldn't possibly have such a high level of cultivation that could see through his background. If it was a Foundation Establishment disciple from Xingjing sect, perhaps with a glance, they would be able to tell that he was a Spirit Sword sect disciple. Realizing that he had passed this hurdle, Wen Bao breathed a sigh of relief and then cautiously retreated. Before he left, that 7 Stars sect elder impatiently called back the girls with a lascivious smile. Before long, the fatty trotted all the way back to the previously agreed place. Then, in a few words, Wang Lu and Little Ling, heir, who had been waiting for him for a long time, were shocked. "Senior brother, you're wrong. In this county, there's more than one 7 Stars cultivator. Moreover, it's not a 4 Stars emissary, but a 6 Stars elder. What the hell? What kind of god is this?" After drinking cold water and eating cooked meat, the fatty finally calmed down and began to talk about his experience in detail. As a result, Wang Lu and Little Ling heir looked at each other in dismay. They both felt that this matter was really f***ed up. From 4 stars to 6 stars, is there a need to be so exaggerated? For a time, even the lady boss, the nemesis of cultivators, felt that this matter was tricky. Because once a cultivator entered the Foundation Establishment stage, their magical power would circulate inside and outside of their body. Their physical strength would be greatly improved, and their ability to survive would skyrocket. Relying solely on the mortal world's martial artists was somewhat insufficient. Even if they could protect themselves, it would be extremely difficult for them to win. Wang Lu also clicked his tongue. It's only been a few days, but his star rank has already skyrocketed. Could it be that this guy is also a rebel? What? Nothing. In short, this is important information. Fortunately, I have the foresight to let Wen Bao explore the actual situation. Otherwise, if I rashly rushed over, the consequences would be hard to predict. The lady boss helplessly sighed. Even at this time, you still can't forget your narcissism? Wen Bao, tell me in detail what happened just now. Don't miss any detail. Wang Lu, of course, has the capital to be narcissistic. Because his eyes have already lit up, he excitedly activated his professional adventurer mode. Seeing this, the lady boss didn't want to disturb him, so she quietly waited on the side. Wen Bao's emotions calmed down. The second time he narrated, it was a lot more organized. He even described in detail the scenery he saw along the way from the courtyard door to the main room. Although Fatty's aptitude was slow, after 2 years of cultivation, his body had been cleansed by spiritual energy, and he had just started to cultivate his mind. Although his IQ might not have improved much, his mind was clear, and his hearing and eyes were much sharper. Realizing the importance of this matter, Wen Bao didn't dare to conceal anything. He even described the scene of the cultivator elder's lewd behavior during the day, causing the lady boss to retreat a few steps without batting an eyelid. The narration took a little longer, and Wang Lu didn't interrupt the whole time. Only when Wen Bao finished did he softly say, "Tell me in detail what happened just now." Wen Bao was dumbfounded. The lady boss couldn't help but scold, "Are you in heat? Do you want to hear that kind of disgusting thing again?" Wang Lu frowned. "Your thoughts are really dirty. No wonder you're a 30-year-old virgin." Before he could finish, he was sent flying by a friendly face-breaking punch. Chapter 88. Wang Lu stood up, shook his head, and said to Wen Bao, "Tell me the details again, there is important information in it." Hearing this, the lady boss was stunned, then snorted, knowing that she might have misunderstood him, so she didn't stop him. Wen Bao had no choice but to be patient and repeat the scene of that ****** again. Wang Lu clicked his tongue, "This Shui Bai Mao really knows how to play." Then, according to your memory, when the cultivator was having sex in the hall, except for the woman sitting on him, the other women were only bare-chested. Were there any signs of sexual intercourse on them? Wen Bao was stunned. This. Let me think carefully. After a while, he shook his head. I don't think so. If that's the case, then I think the problem of 4 stars becoming 6 stars can be explained. The lady boss was curious. How do you explain it? The pawn on the dog-ear mountain didn't lie to us. His contact was indeed a 4 stars emissary, and a 4 stars can't become 6 stars overnight, so, the truth is, the 6 stars the fatty saw was another person. The lady boss's eyes widened. Another person? Then what about the original 4 stars? Wang Lu laughed. Isn't it hanging on the body of the original 4 stars? Hanging? The lady boss was stunned, then her cheeks flushed, and she spat. You mean those 2 people, probably dual cultivation companions or something like that, don't lowly sex like to do this kind of dishonest things? Not to mention other things, the increase of magical power and cultivation is usually very significant, although the side effects are also great. Why would they care so much? The lady boss nodded, then frowned. If it's dual cultivation, then what are the other women doing? Wang Lu asked, when you sing, don't you have a few dancers behind you? Just to liven things up? TSK, how desolate. The lady boss clenched her teeth, quite dissatisfied. After the dual cultivation, it's the real time of debauchery, but it's not bad. At least they didn't openly rob women on the street, hiding in their own homes and playing tricks. It has nothing to do with others. But this is indeed an important detail. Thinking about it carefully, in fact, our current situation is not advantageous. The opponent has changed from a 4 stars emissary to a 4 stars emissary and a 6 stars cultivator. Moreover, they are cultivators who have become dual cultivation companions. When the 2 of them are together, they may be able to display the special effect of love is stronger than gold, but my most powerful weapon is still in the Wang family village. Overall, the advantage of a head-on confrontation is not big. The lady boss agreed with his judgment. And then? But we still have a huge advantage. The enemy is in the light while we are in the dark. As long as we make full use of this, we might be able to solve the problem more smoothly than expected. You want to launch a sneak attack? I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Since the 2 of them are obsessed with dual cultivation, I'm afraid they won't go out easily. How did you plot against them? Due to her good moral standards, the lady boss was not opposed to sneak attacks and plots, but she raised a specific problem. In this regard, Wang Lu also had a plan. It's very simple. If they don't come out, then we'll go in. The lady boss couldn't help but laugh. They've been living in the side courtyard for a long time. You and Wen Bao are both sword cultivators who aren't good at magic. How are you going to sneak in? Why would I need to sneak in? We can totally go in openly. Are you crazy? What kind of sneak attack is it if we go in openly? Wang Lu couldn't help but sigh. No wonder your shabby inn is about to close down. As a boss, your IQ is really worrying. Damn, my inn's daily turnover is still over 10,000. It's still a long way from closing down. In another 100 years, the daily turnover will only be over 100. Do you have a problem with a century-old inn? Alright, what should we do? You're a highly intelligent professional adventurer. Just tell us your conclusion. Wang Lu nodded. Actually, the method is obvious. That 6 stars elder is definitely a lecherous person. If I don't take advantage of such a big weakness, my professional adventurer spirit will cry. Take advantage of his lecherousness? The lady boss still didn't quite understand, but she had a vague bad feeling. When she found that Wang Lu and Wen Bao were very serious and focused, and they were staring at her with great expectation, she finally understood Wang Lu's plan. She immediately said angrily, "Don't even think about it." "Huh, Sister Ling, there's no need to be shy. You're the nemesis of cultivators. When the opponent is caught off guard, even a nascent soul stage-old monster would be beaten senseless by you, let alone a foundation-building stage trash. You're the best candidate for a sneak attack." Hee hee. The lady boss sneered. "Sister Ling, you're as beautiful as a flower. No, you're absolutely gorgeous. Once you show up, you'll probably make that old pervert fall head over heels for you and give up without a fight. If you don't show up, who will? Hee hee, you have good taste." Wait. The lady boss's relaxed expression immediately turned serious. Which idiot said I'm rude, barbaric, and unfeminine not long ago? Wang Lu's expression didn't change. He turned to Wen Bao and asked, "Was it you?" Wen Bao almost pissed his pants. "What does it have to do with me?" Wang Lu regretfully shook his head. "Sister Ling, it seems like it's hard to catch that rude person who blasphemed your celestial appearance. I have to ask you to temporarily put aside your minor conflict and display the advantage of being a gorgeous beauty. Go," Sister Ling sneered. "Go seduce that old pervert." Wang Lu, you really have the nerve to make such a request. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was startled. Indeed, although Sister Ling looked like a low-class person, she was, after all, the daughter of the sect leader, a proper second generation. Letting her come forward to do this kind of shady business was indeed a bit exciting, haha. Sister Ling, I know you have some resistance towards this matter in your heart. Women are always a little reserved. It's not rare, but the world has changed. Being reserved is not worth much. Women can only pursue happiness if they are open-minded. Other women can let go of their hands and feet, but you can't open the tweezers. Then the opportunity and happiness will belong to someone else, leaving you with only leftovers. Think about it." Before he finished, he was coldly interrupted by little Ling Air. "This is the plot of a pimp tricking a good woman, right?" Wang Lu was silent for a while. "I'm sorry, I recited it wrong. Do you want to change it? Change your head. I'm telling you, don't even think about that dirty trick of yours." Being so resolute, Wang Lu was startled for a while. Then, he began to sneer. "Humph, Sister Ling, to put it bluntly, you have no confidence in yourself, right? Ha, don't try to provoke me. I admit, if you look at it purely from the outside, as a woman, you are definitely 100% beauty." The lady boss slightly raised her head, trying hard to suppress her complacent expression. However, Wang Lu's next words made her instantly burn with anger. However, a woman's beauty is not only determined by her appearance, but more importantly, her temperament. This is equivalent to a warrior's internal energy in true qi, or a cultivator's immortal heart. It's not that I want to criticize you, Sister Ling, but as a woman, your temperament is really bad. Hee hee. To be honest, if it weren't for the fact that I didn't have any other candidates, I also wouldn't want you to take the risk. The probability of failure is really too high, and it might even bring you a serious psychological shadow. Alas, there's no other way. Later, I'll go with Fatty to a brothel and spend some money to find a few cheap prostitutes. The lady boss was about to go crazy from anger. Are you saying that I'm not as good as a few cheap prostitutes? Wang Lu promptly shook his head. How could I dare? It's just that, this industry has its own specialization. In terms of femininity, Sister Ling, you're really, enough. Little Ling Air suddenly roared. Her true chi burst forth, shaking the dust on both sides of the alley. Seeing Little Ling Air's demoralizing roar, Wang Lu was also taken aback. What the F***ck? Sister Ling's lower limit has always been unfathomable, but this time, she actually went too far? He and Wen Bao looked at each other and felt that things were a bit tricky. If they really pissed off this grand aunt, she would run back to the Spirit Creek town alone. Then, the two of them would definitely not be able to deal with the 7 stars sex shoot-on stage cultivators, let alone a shoot-on stage cultivator. They couldn't even do anything to this 4-star and 6-star combination. A flash of inspiration appeared in Wen Bao's mind. He hurriedly blinked at his senior brother and then tried to use their tacit understanding to tell the other party that he had just thought of a brilliant plan. Kneel and lick, senior brother, quickly kneel and lick. To deal with Sister Ling, this move had always been successful. However, since Wen Bao could think of it, how could Wang Lu not think of it? While he was secretly sneering and preparing to say, "Master above," he heard Sister Ling sneer. In the end, Wang Lu, you're just trying to goad me into action. Don't really take me as a fool. Wang Lu said with a smile, Sister Ling, you're wise and mighty, who would dare to take you as a fool? Little Ling Air ignored this insincere flattery. But, I can see that what you just said is from your heart. Ha, I can't believe that in your heart, I have such an image. The lady boss's smile became colder and colder. Although things seemed to be going on the expected track, Wang Lu couldn't stand it anymore. Little Ling Air, don't do this, don't do that. Being provoked to this point, whether it's goading or not, I have no reason not to stand up and fight. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was surprised for a moment, and then his face lit up. Oh, Sister Ling, you're really a righteous person, a role model for our generation. Little Ling Air continued to sneer. Don't be so excited. Things are not that simple. There's no reason for me to sell my body just because you said something, right? Is there such a cheap thing? Sister Ling, are you going to charge me? Damn, if I charge you, then what would I become? I want to make a bet with you. If I succeed, then it means that your so-called femininity is pure nonsense. Wang Lu hurriedly said, it's nonsense from the beginning, Sister Ling, don't take it seriously. Then, I want you to apologize. I'll apologize to you right now. What's the use of this insincere apology? Then what do you want me to do? I haven't thought about it yet, so I'll owe you for now. Speaking up to here, the lady boss raised her head and looked at Wang Lu. Her eyes wandered, and she revealed a meaningful smile. However, don't think that you can easily fool me when the time comes. Being stared at by those smiling yet not smiling eyes, for no reason, Wang Lu suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. But he quickly reacted and loudly praised. Don't worry, Sister Ling's great kindness and peerless beauty will be engraved in my heart. I'll think of you every night when I sleep. TSK, be careful. I won't, as long as I think of Sister Ling, I'll naturally be full of vigor. Damn, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. How do I sneak in next? Do you have a plan? Then, do I need to seriously dress up? Wang Lu's spirit shook, and he hurriedly said, I already have a plan, you don't need to spend too much effort on dressing up. Sister Ling, your beauty is like a lotus flower in clear water, naturally sculpted. Bare face is perfect, bare face is perfect. Yeah, actually, I think so too. Chapter 89. In any case, with Little Ling Air's strong support, the following development would be very smooth. The general idea of the plan was very simple. It was to take advantage of the 6 stars elder's lecherous nature and find a way to let Little Ling Air approach him, then subdue him at close range. With her special ability to eliminate all immortal energy, she would be able to injure someone at close range. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to react in time, and as long as little Ling Heir could personally control that elder, he wouldn't be able to use his abilities no matter how great they were. As for the other 4 stars, let her do whatever she wants. The only problem was how to push the beautiful lady boss in front of that 6 stars lecherous old man. This is actually very simple. When the fatty went in just now, didn't he see a few girls accompanying them? Sister Ling, just go in the same way they went in. If nothing unexpected happens, it should be very easy. What do you mean? Wang Lu explained. From the fatty's description, those women shouldn't have been coerced, but rather willingly offered themselves to him. With the ability of a foundation establishment cultivator, although they can charm people's hearts, they will leave obvious traces, and the fatty should be able to see through it. Moreover, I think that since they are living so comfortably in Marquis County, they should be acting within the rules and have reached a certain tacit understanding with the county magistrate and the others. The lady boss nodded, and then? But from the details, we can also see that some of them are skilled in this field, and are obviously professionals in this field. They should be prostitutes in the county. There are also some who seem unskilled, and should be ordinary people who occasionally come out to make money. With this elder's temperament and status, at least compared to mortals, he should be extremely wealthy. And then? However, the appearance of ordinary people means at least one problem. This small county with only 10,000 people doesn't have enough population to give birth to too many beauties, not to mention that not all beauties are willing to be sold. That 6 stars elder shouldn't have stayed here for a long time, so he should still be able to gather enough beauties for his lewd pleasure. However, I think his reserve should be stretched thin, and a lecherous person like him will get tired of the old very quickly. The quality of the current group of people isn't particularly high, so it's impossible for him to not get tired of playing with them. After a while, won't he suffer from not having enough women to play with? The lady boss curled her lips in disgust. Humph, disgusting. Wang Lu shrugged. This is a necessary characteristic for the continuation of the human race. You have to look at this problem from the perspective of the entire human race. The lady boss only raised her middle finger high up in the air. In short, I think that cultivators should be looking for a new woman. At this time, as long as you appear in his sight in a safe, harmless, and reasonable manner, it will be natural to send you to that elder. What do you mean by safe, harmless, and reasonable posture? Wang Lu thought for a moment, then whispered to the lady boss, "That's it." After a while, after listening to Wang Lu's plan, the lady boss sighed, "I feel like you're deliberately messing with me. In all honesty, I have no such intentions." Although this move is a bit vulgar, it is undeniable that the more vulgar a move is, the more effective it is. Moreover, in a remote county like Marquis County, it might be easier to win people's trust. Moreover, even if it doesn't win people's trust, so what? As long as you reveal your stunning beauty, even if there are some suspicious points about your identity, they will all be covered up. Alright, then I'll do as you say and act once. But I'll say it again. Wang Lu continued, "I understand, I owe you a huge favor." Humph, it's good that you remember. Without further ado, that evening, the 3 of them began to move. To be precise, there were only 2 people who participated in the operation. One was the lady boss, the other was Bao. As for Wang Lu, as the director, he watched the entire process. The specific performance was as follows: setting, Marquis County's commercial street. Characters, lady boss, Bao. The lady boss and Bao walked side by side. The 2 of them were travel-worn, their clothes were tattered, and they looked down and out. Bao's figure was stooped, his steps were unsteady, and he coughed from time to time, as if he was suffering from a serious illness. The lady boss, "Xiao Bao, how are you?" Bao, "Sis, I'm fine, don't worry about me." "How can I not care about you?" "Your illness. The doctor said that as long as you take medicine on time, you will definitely be cured. Our village is lacking in resources, so we brought you to the county." Just now, the medicine shop has all the ingredients, there will be no problem. But sis, although there is medicine in the medicine shop, they don't give it for free. Sigh, if it wasn't for father squandering the family's farmland, how would we have money to buy medicine? Sis, don't lie to me, my illness. The medicine I need is too precious. Even if we have all our farmland, we can't gather enough medicine for the entire course of treatment. So sis, don't worry about me. Don't worry, since I brought you here, I have a way to earn money to buy medicine for your illness. Earn money? Sis, how can you earn money? Heh, sis can embroider, knit, and cook. In such a big county, I can always find a way to earn money. But, no buts, Uncle Wang from the east side of the village said that the handkerchiefs I embroider can sell for a lot of money in the county. Anyway, don't worry. Scene 2, Entrance of the County Magistrate's Courtyard. Character, Lady Boss, Sai, Xiaobao and I have depended on each other for many years. I can't watch him die of illness, even if. I can definitely earn money. Then, with great determination, the girl strode to the entrance and asked the two burly martial artists guarding the courtyard. The lady boss clasped her hands in front of her chest, mustered up her courage, but still stuttered, Excuse me, is there a shortage of manpower in your mansion? One of the martial artists didn't even look at her and waved his hand. Go away, if you want food, go elsewhere. However, the other sharp-eyed one glanced at the girl's face, and his eyes lit up. He quickly patted his companion. Hey, look carefully. The other person curiously turned his head. After a moment, he understood and said to the girl, Wait, I'll go find the housekeeper to talk to you. Not long after, a person who looked like a housekeeper came out of the courtyard, looked at the girl up and down, and nodded with satisfaction. Come in with me, let's talk in detail. The girl with a bit of fear and nervousness followed the housekeeper into the courtyard. There were many rooms in the courtyard. The housekeeper took the girl into a remote room, ordered the servants to pour tea, and asked eagerly, Miss, are you here to find a job? The girl quickly said, Yes. I can do anything. I can even cook and wash. It's just that I need a sum of money right now. The amount may be relatively large, so. Don't worry, speak slowly. The housekeeper was not in a hurry, his voice was amiable. Do you have any difficulties? The girl's eyes turned red. Yes, my brother, in the time it took to eat a meal, the housekeeper understood the story of the deep love between a sister and a brother, and nodded. At this time, an agile servant walked in from outside, and whispered something in the housekeeper's ear. The housekeeper's expression became even more satisfied. After sending the servant away, he said to the girl, I have a general understanding of your situation. To be honest, you said that you and your brother came from a remote mountain village. But right now, there is no evidence to prove your identity. According to the rules of our house, we can't take in people of unknown origins. The girl immediately became anxious. But, listen to me finish. Although it is somewhat inconsistent with the house's rules, I sympathize with your experience, and I also admire your selfless dedication to your brother. Everything can be made an exception, isn't that right? The girl was ecstatic. Thank you for your great kindness. Don't be in a hurry to thank me. I know you are in urgent need of money, but right now, the house is not lacking in handymen, and with just the salary of a servant, I'm afraid it won't be able to meet your needs. The girl was stunned. Then what should I do? Actually, the house has another errand. Currently, we are in urgent need of manpower. The salary is very generous, and your conditions are completely met. What is it? The housekeeper looked at the girl with interest. You said, in order to cure your brother's illness, I can do anything? Yes, I only have this one brother. For him, I can do anything. Ah, that's good. The matter is like this. After explaining in a soft voice, the housekeeper saw the girl's lifeless expression as expected. However, it was better to be lifeless. The more inexperienced a fledgling like this, the higher the value. Although right now, she looked covered in dust and was not very eye-catching, how could the housekeeper not see that this girl was of the highest quality? If she tidied up a bit more, she would be far better than the few women in the house who served the immortal master. After an unknown amount of time, the girl fiercely clenched her teeth. As long as I can get the money, I can do anything. Good, with these words of yours, I can rest assured. As for the money, I can give it to you now, we can sign the contract later. However, this matter is not something I can decide. In the end, it still has to be decided by master. After a while, you and the maids go to the back to wash up, change into a decent set of clothes, and leave a good impression on master, in the future. Hey, the benefits will be endless. After saying that, the housekeeper also put down his previous serious face and reached out to touch the girl's cheek. In the end, the girl seemed to intentionally or unintentionally lower her head, suddenly bowing, and just happened to avoid the housekeeper's hand. Thank you for your great kindness. The housekeeper was stunned for a moment, then shook his head. Okay, you can leave. Half an hour later, the young girl walked out of the bathroom under the service of several servants. She was wearing an exquisite and elegant long dress. Coupled with the dense water vapor from the bath, the young girl's delicate and pretty features were perfectly set off. She was really like a lotus flower that had just emerged from the water. An older maid in charge of serving her said with jealousy, "Look, this girl is like someone from the heavens. Hey, in the future, you will definitely be deeply loved by the immortal master." The housekeeper was obviously a bit envious, but he still managed to control himself. "Come, the immortal master is waiting for you in the room." The girl showed the nervousness she should have. "Immortal master, now? Oh, isn't it now? This kind of good thing, it's better to hurry." Then, like a bride before marriage, the girl followed behind the housekeeper, her face red and body stiff, to the room where the immortal master was. On the road, little Ling Er's heart was slightly complicated. So far, the progress of the matter was exactly the same as Wang Lu expected. Although there were actually a lot of flaws, but, in the face of enough urgent needs, all the flaws could be deliberately ignored. When that guy was a professional adventurer, he was really somewhat reliable. The unreliable one was me. Damn, what am I doing? I didn't open the Rue Family Inn, which had a daily turnover of over 10,000, and ran to this wilderness to put on a show of selling myself to save my younger brother. Moreover, I actually have to stroke my hair in front of a vulgar lecher. How bewitched am I that I agreed to Wang Lu's shameless request? Is it really because there are a few days every month? Alas, forget it. In any case, I'll beat that lecher until his stick is bent and barely vent my anger. After this matter is over, I'll go beat up Wang Lu and continue to vent my anger. Moreover, to be honest, being praised by the people around me for my beauty is also very refreshing. When I was in the Spirit Sword Mountain, those stupid disciples didn't have this kind of eyesight. I'll let that country bumpkin cultivator open his eyes and see what is called a real fairy descending to the world. With a woman's pride, little Ling Er finally entered the main room where that lecher was. Fortunately, that guy was neatly dressed and was sipping tea. He didn't do that unsightly thing. When that 6 stars elder saw little Ling Er, his eyes swept over her face and suddenly revealed an incomparably stunned expression. Little Ling Er caught a glimpse of him and inwardly felt proud. He really took the bait. My family's charm is irresistible. Some scoundrel, wait for me to come back and deal with you. As for this lecher old man? Seeing that you have some sense of beauty, I won't beat you up too badly later. At this time, that lecher old man, with a look of admiration and amazement, moved his eyes away from little Ling Er's delicate and elegant face and reluctantly moved downwards. Along her slender and smooth neck, he saw the sexy and exquisite collarbone. After a moment of nostalgia, he then moved downwards and found a piece of white skin. Her skin was like the finest white jade, sparkling and translucent, and it caused one's gaze to be attracted to her. Suddenly, the old cultivator's mind was in a daze. It was as if he had returned to decades ago, when he was doing experiential learning in the Blue River region. He was fortunate enough to see a famous scenic spot, White Jade Plain. That boundless wilderness was paved with white jade, dazzling anyone who saw it. Huh? White jade. Plain. The dirty old man frowned, stretched out his hand to pinch the bridge of his nose, and then opened his eyes again. A moment later, his anger filled the air. You bunch of idiots, where did you find such a dried-up little girl? No breasts, no buttocks, what's the use of having a beautiful face? How many times have I told you, I want big breasts and big buttocks? This kind of manly girl, quickly drive her back, don't bring this kind of trash here in the future. Boom. Little Ling Air only felt as if she was struck by lightning, and her vision turned black. Then, she didn't know anything. Chapter 90. When little Ling Air regained her consciousness, she discovered that she was already standing outside the courtyard wall. She was still wearing that exquisite long dress, and the steam from her bath hadn't completely dissipated. Only, with her back against the setting sun, the slender figure that was cast in front of her eyes seemed so lonely and sorrowful. After gawking for a moment, little Ling Air's dull mind gradually began to ferment with emotion. The corner of the girl's mouth hung a trace of a strange smile, and then she strode toward a certain direction in the county. At the same time, Wang Lu and Wen Bao were squatting in a remote alley, each holding a piece of cooked meat and a piece of cooked meat, gorging themselves. Senior brother Wang Lu, do you think Sister Ling, she, really has no problem? Wang Lu swallowed the meat in his mouth and said with a smile, rest assured, women are natural actors. Didn't a runner come to confirm your identity just now? Obviously, she has already infiltrated the enemy's inner circle, and soon, she will be able to make a contribution. It's just that, I always feel that Sister Ling seems to have paid a big sacrifice. What's there to sacrifice? She won't be taken advantage of. On the contrary, she will be surrounded by the stars and regarded as a fairy descending to the world. That guy's heart must be in a mess. You know, in the Spirit Sword Mountain, no one has ever praised her as beautiful as a flower, right? Wen Bao thought for a moment. That's true. Why? Actually, Sister Ling is indeed very beautiful. Wang Lu sneered. What's the use of being beautiful? With her temperament, it's hard for people to see her as a woman. Just like my master, objectively speaking, she's also a beauty, right? Let alone a woman, do you think she's a human being? That's true. Am I right? However, as long as little Ling Air is willing to act, fooling a mountain hooligan is not a problem. You have to say. Wang Lu frowned. Her figure is a bit thin, but these days, there are too many perverted lollicons. Maybe that lecher will take a liking to her. Flat breasts are scarce, ha 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 ha. Although Wen Bao didn't quite understand, seeing his senior brother laughing happily, he also laughed foolishly. However, halfway through his laughter, he abruptly stopped. At the entrance of the alley, a girl's back was against the setting sun. Her slender shadow was cast, which happened to block his field of vision. It was as if night had fallen. Wang Lu raised his head and saw the girl. He was about to welcome her back with a smile, but in the next moment, Wang Lu, I'm going to kill you. The young woman gave off a shocking aura as she stepped forwards like lightning and heavily punched Wang Lu's face. Bang! The youth flew out like a cannonball, and with a loud bang, he was imprinted on a wall. Turning strength to hit someone like a painting, what a freehand painting. I see. I didn't expect things to change like this. With heavy dark circles under his eyes, Wang Lu made a pained expression and sighed. Just now, little Ling Air was filled with humiliation as she recounted her experiences in the courtyard. Of course, Wen Bao had already been driven far away, so she had a private conversation with Wang Lu. This kind of life of humiliation, if one more person knew, it would be one more person to silence. Hearing this shocking change, Wang Lu was also dumbfounded. No matter how much of a professional adventurer he was, he didn't expect things to change so dramatically. That dirty old man was not only obscene, but also perverted. Tasteless. He actually dared to discriminate against flat-chested people. You're rebelling. Wang Lu sighed, Sister Ling, I really wronged you. Pfft. Originally, he wanted to try to comfort the girl whose mind was seriously injured, but he couldn't help but laugh. Of course, the result was that he was once again hung on the wall by Sister Ling. If you laugh again, I'll beat you until you, the culprit, can't remember anything. Wang Lu touched the other dark circle under his eyes and said with great difficulty, I won't laugh, I won't laugh. I've already deeply realized my mistake. When I go back, I'll certainly give you a sincere compensation. Little Ling gnashed her teeth. Who wants your compensation? How can you compensate? Wang Lu thought for a moment. Actually, I know a few folk prescriptions that can help with breast enlargement. Sister Ling, you, bang. Coming down from the wall for the third time, Wang Lu helplessly sighed. Sister Ling, are you going to practice the magic brush Maoyang divine technique? No matter what, I won't really become a two-dimensional being. I. Little Ling was also somewhat tongue-tied. Because, to be precise, Wang Lu just couldn't calculate it. He didn't have the intention to harm her. But the resentment in her heart was hard to quell, so what should she do? Wang Lu's complexion sank. Of course, every debt has a debtor. We have to find the real culprit for revenge. Little Ling's interest waned. How? Our infiltration plan failed. Wang Lu was also somewhat embarrassed. Yes, I didn't expect that guy to be so perverted and shallow. He completely doesn't have a normal aesthetic sense. If we don't take this path, it will indeed be difficult to enter the mansion. Wen Bao and I are not good at stealth and transformation cultivators. Little Ling snorted. If it doesn't work, then let's just go straight ahead. I'm tired of going around in circles like this. Wang Lu said you're upset because I'm afraid there's another reason. When I asked you to sell your body at the beginning, weren't you also very happy? But, if they really had to fight face to face. Wang Lu was still somewhat hesitant. With their current lineup, they could win against a 6-star cultivator and a 4-star cultivator, but it would be difficult to catch them. And if they couldn't catch them, this attack would be tantamount to alerting the enemy. Later, it would be difficult to find the headquarters and catch the sect leader. Moreover, this time, it was very likely that the other party would retaliate, complicating the situation. If possible, it would be best to launch a sneak attack, because up until now, the biggest advantage they had was that the enemy was in the light while they were in the dark. Therefore, the problem returned to the original point. How should they sneak into the mansion and catch those two adulterers? The honey trap was the most effective, but unfortunately, the lady boss's appearance was good, but her figure was not good. Apart from the lady boss, where else could they find someone who was good-looking and strong enough to subdue a foundation-building cultivator? Did they have to go back to the mountain to find able-bodied men? The disciples had long gone to all over the world to gain experience, so it was not easy to find able-bodied men. Alas, if the junior sister Yu Xinyao that a certain someone couldn't forget was here, he could come up with some tricks. But now, there was only one flat-chested, one fatty, and one. Wang Lu sighed, lowered his head, and happened to see a puddle on the ground. The surface of the puddle was as flat as a mirror, reflecting the slightly anxious face of the youth. Hey, wait a minute, there seems to be a way. Sister Ling, I'll have to trouble you and Fatty to wait here for a moment, I have an idea. Sister Ling thought he was in a hurry to go to the toilet, so she weakly waved her hand. Go. After about the time it takes to eat a meal, just when little Ling was a little bored standing at the entrance of the alley and was about to leave, suddenly, a person came from a distance. It was a beautiful girl with a medium build and elegant appearance. The woman was wearing a gorgeous long dress, adding a bit of flirtatiousness and charm to her delicate and pretty face. The girl swayed her hips as she walked, and her eyes flashed with infinite charm. Seeing this person, little Ling subconsciously frowned. Especially when she saw the girl's towering chest, she became even more hostile. What the hell, Where did this kind of person come from in this remote county? It stood to reason that all of them should be malnourished and withered. People from a small county should have the appearance of a small county. With such a big chest, did she want to be a professional nanny? Then, under little Ling Er's complicated gaze, the strange woman suddenly turned her head, smiled at her, and walked straight towards her. What do you want from me? Little Ling Er was in a bad mood, especially after the other party stood still, intentionally or unintentionally puffed out her chest. It was simply a provocation. Oh, it's me. Who are you? Do I know you? Little Ling Er subconsciously replied, and then she completely froze. Because that voice was too familiar, it was clearly, it's me, can't you tell? I didn't fake my voice, it can't be, right? The lady boss felt that her jaw was about to drop to the ground. Wang Lu. @ hashtag. Huh, this lady's surname is Wang Lu, why aren't you two coming to pay your respects? In short, because the two of you are of no use, I can only do it myself. I definitely don't have any special hobbies. It's just that I had an idea when I saw the reflection on the water. Sigh, although I can't be said to be very handsome, I can still take advantage of the fact that my secondary sexual characteristics haven't fully matured. I can still make a cameo appearance as a trap. Don't just open your mouth and stare blankly, give me some advice. Do I look passable with my current appearance? After spending some time, it should be more or less the same, but I still need to think about the details, but I can't care so much for now. The lady boss and Wen Bao still had a horrified expression, standing still like statues, not moving an inch. Wang Lu shook his head helplessly, then reached out to touch the lady boss' chest. Bang! It was another portrait. A certain 2D figure painting said with difficulty. Aren't you quite spirited? That unguarded posture just now was to lure the snake out of its hole. The lady boss blushed and covered her chest with her hand. Smelly rogue, dead pervert, you are simply disgusting. Wang Lu jumped down from the wall and angrily retorted, isn't it because of your incompetence? Flat chest. Otherwise, why would you let a handsome man like me sell my body? I'm under a lot of psychological pressure, okay? Dead pervert. Stay away from me. Also, don't breathe, a pervert like you will pollute the entire county's air. Damn, why are you so arrogant, flat chest? The lady boss was extremely angry, but then she turned her eyes and couldn't help but wonder, you said I'm flat chest. But you're a big man, what's with your chest? It doesn't look like it's filled with cotton or apples. Wang Lu sighed and patted his chest, which made a muffled thumping sound. This. The lady boss was stunned, and then suddenly realized, you adjusted the shape of your ribs. My goodness, you actually learned this martial art in secret. Wang Lu sneered and said, my goodness, non-phase sword bone, isn't it training the bones? Although it's a bit uncomfortable, it's not a big problem to hold on for a day or two. In any case, as long as you don't use your hands and don't do any strenuous activity, there won't be much difference between you and a real guy. Using the dignified non-phase sword bone like this, it's really, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. I'm afraid this skill has already been used by master in many more shameless ways. For example, the third leg bone. My insignificant skill is simply shameful. Well, let's not talk too much, I'm going to seduce him. The lady boss was surprised. You're going now? So direct? There must be a reason, right? Before, I put on a long play with Wen Bao. That's because you two are too weak, so I had to increase the foreplay. But with my strength, why would I need lubrication? Wang Lu sneered, just wait and see, I'll let you experience the power of a professional adventurer. It's a professional adventurer pervert. Not long after, the three people once again arrived at the entrance of the courtyard. The lady boss and Wen Bao peeped in the dark, while the cross-dressed Wang Lu walked out from his hiding place with a confident smile. Taking advantage of the shadow of his hiding place, Wang Lu took out a bottle of wine from nowhere and poured it on his neck. Suddenly, the smell of wine filled the air. Then, Wang Lu's steps also became unsteady, swaying left and right, like a drunken imperial concubine. Under the dumbfounded lady boss, Wang Lu softly opened his mouth and let out a burst of mournful cry. "You damn heartless. You have a new person and you forget about me. That pledge of undying love, it's all a lie." The lady boss only felt as if there was a violent thunder roaring above her head. Her vision turned black, and she almost fainted. This was really destroying her worldview. Although for a cultivator at the level of Wang Lu, changing his voice to produce a woman's fake voice was very easy. In fact, even Wen Bao could do it. However, when she thought of the heartbroken woman in front of her who was drowning her sorrows in wine, her real identity was that fellow Wang Lu. "Sorry, I'll still look for my chin on the ground." On the other side, while crying, Wang Lu seemed to intentionally or unintentionally walk toward the gate of the courtyard. The two guards naturally saw this drunken woman in the night and frowned. They felt that the situation was a bit strange, but they couldn't tell what was strange. In any case, they just watched the show. Although the drunken woman's appearance was a mess, if you looked carefully, her appearance was actually not bad. Especially that pair of lethal weapons on her chest, it really didn't look like something that a remote county like Marquis County could raise. The two guards' faces were wooden, pretending to be loyal and devoted guards of the house, but their eyes couldn't help but glance over. However, after a while, they didn't need to pretend anymore. Because the woman actually staggered over and threw herself into the arms of the strong man, reeking of alcohol. The strong man was stunned, and subconsciously wanted to push the woman away, but the drunken woman's hands were too strong. She firmly grabbed his arm, and he couldn't break free. "None of you men are good things. You all like the new and hate the old, greedy and insatiable. You, quickly let go." The strong man broke out in a cold sweat. If this was seen by the housekeeper or even the immortal master, he wouldn't be able to keep his job. However, although the woman was drunk, it was hard to hide her outstanding beauty. He wanted to do it, but he really couldn't bear to. The other strong man was stunned for a while, and wanted to come over to help. Who knew that when the woman saw him approaching, she immediately cried even harder, and fell to the ground, unwilling to move. Just as he was in a dilemma, the courtyard door opened, and the housekeeper's face was full of anger. "What the hell are you guys arguing about outside? If you anger the immortal master, who among us will have a good time?" The two martial masters hurriedly explained the situation, and then hurriedly lifted the drunken woman for the housekeeper to see. The housekeeper frowned because of the smell of alcohol, but when he saw the woman's appearance, especially the snow-white chest under her messy clothes. "Damn it, a pillow when I'm sleepy." The housekeeper clenched his teeth, and reached out to find a mysterious servant in the courtyard. He asked him a few questions, and then said to the two martial masters, "You two, carry this woman into the house for me." But this woman." The housekeeper gritted his teeth. "Damn it, although we don't know where she came from, how can we care so much at this time? The immortal master has long lost interest in the original batch of women, but where can we find an absolute beauty that can catch his eye in this small county? We found one before, but she was despised for having small breasts. But, could it be? The immortal master personally arranged this house's array, so we don't need to worry about it." The two martial masters nodded. In any case, it was the housekeeper's idea, and the two of them were only responsible for carrying it out. They then carried the already drunk woman into the courtyard door. The housekeeper personally escorted them, and when he saw that there was no one around, he carefully closed the courtyard door. He muttered, "This one's breasts are big enough, much better than that tomboy." At the same time, in a dark corner nearby, the lady boss, who had been watching the whole thing, spat out a mouthful of blood. "You perverts, all of you must die." Chapter 91. The housekeeper and the martial master carried the woman into the courtyard. They intended to go to the bathroom to wash, but they heard the impatient voice of the immortal master directly exploding in their ears. Okay, no need to be so troublesome. Bring that woman to me. Damn, you can't even do such a small thing, a bunch of wastes. Before his voice fell, a mass of green gas fell from midair and swept the woman's body. Suddenly, the smell of alcohol disappeared, and a burst of fragrance assaulted their nostrils. The two brawny martial masters were startled. This was the immortal method. The immortal method that happened in front of them. Although the effect was only simple cleaning, with the immortal master's technique, since the green gas could fall from the sky, naturally, it could also fall from the sky with divine thunder or fire. How could it not be awe-inspiring? Hearing the immortal master's urging, the housekeeper quickly said, "Immortal master, this woman's background is a bit, humph, what's the big deal about her background? Quickly bring her in." A group of people quickly carried the woman into the main room. They saw the old cultivator with a face full of dissatisfaction. He was sitting on the bed with his chest exposed, and his face carried a bit of hostility. Behind the old cultivator, there were two women lying on the bed. Their lower bodies were stained with blood, and their faces were stained with tears. They had already fainted. Damn, at this time, why are you trying to break through? Who is going to raise this old man's chi? How could this ordinary woman withstand my Vajra scepter? It turned out that this pair of adulterous couples' dual cultivation method, once activated, needed to be practiced every day without rest. Coincidentally, during this period of cultivation, the chi cultivating stage female emissary was on the verge of breaking through, so she had to nourish her spiritual energy and prepare to break through. As a result, the 6 stars elder was in a miserable situation. Without a dual cultivation partner, he could only use the method of plucking the several mortal women in the room. Unfortunately, most of those mortal women had been in the human world for a long time, so most of their essence had already been drained. They were not even enough to fill the gap between the old cultivator's teeth. In desperation, the old cultivator couldn't wait to go out to the county town and abduct the women. However, the quality of the women in the county town was mediocre, so it would take more than 100 of them to suppress the evil fire in his jade mansion. And to pluck more than 100 people. Even if he had a good relationship with the county magistrate, he would not be able to suppress this matter. Once he provoked the cultivators of the Eastern Host Prefecture, the entire 7 Stars sect would face a big trouble. Right at this moment, it was as if the heavens had opened their eyes and sent charcoal in the snowy weather. A peerless beauty descended from the sky. He had delivered himself to his doorstep. Of course, she couldn't be said to be a peerless beauty that could cause the downfall of a city. However, she had a good appearance and a voluptuous body. These 2 points were not easy to fulfill. Although she couldn't be compared to 100, she might be able to solve today's emergency. It was really an urgent matter. If he continued to hold it in, the old cultivator felt that he would suffer from chi deviation in less than 2 hours. Therefore, at this time, even if he knew that this woman had a powerful background, he couldn't care less about it. He picked up his spear and got on the horse, leaving first. What's more, he was in his own courtyard, which was heavily guarded by arrays. Who would he be afraid of? To a certain someone, things were progressing so smoothly that it was strange. Originally, there were still a few obstacles that required some thought and effort, such as bathing and changing clothes. But unexpectedly, it was smooth sailing all the way to the main room. However, he himself was not mentally prepared. *CK, I haven't taken any potions, I haven't gotten any buffs, and I'm already starting the fight? It can't be, right? For Wang Lu, single-handedly contending against a foundation establishment stage cultivator was an extremely serious challenge. It could even be said to be an unsolvable problem. Especially since this courtyard was the opponent's home field, no one knew how many inescapable traps they had laid. Previously, after listening to Wen Bao's description of the details, Wang Lu was able to roughly identify the 3 layers of arrays. They were all common arrays that were explained in the textbook. When the 3 layers were combined, the courtyard would be connected to the cultivator's jade mansion and primordial spirit. Every change in the grass and the trees would be completely under his control. Moreover, the cultivator's spells could be released from any corner, without any blind spots. This part belonged to the basic skills that the cultivator would use to open his own immortal's cave in the future. It was not that powerful or bizarre, but it was the embodiment of a cultivator's basic skills. In the morning, after listening to the fatty's explanation, Wang Lu felt that this opponent was really not easy to deal with. Nowadays, in this group of low-class sects, there were very few cultivators with solid basic skills. All of them regarded their cultivation level as higher than the sky. In their cultivation path, they madly rushed forward and ignored everything else, causing their cultivation level to be shallow. Often, they would be challenged by the cultivators from the big sects, and they would piss their pants in terror. Considering this actual situation, as well as his previous experience of killing 2 4-star emissaries effortlessly, Wang Lu didn't set too high an expectation for the 6-star elder. He never thought that this lecherous stick of perverted stick was also a stick of perverted stick with a solid foundation, which was not easy to deal with. Therefore, later on, he insisted on taking the route of sneak attack. But now, he didn't know if he should say that his luck was good or bad. The advantage was that the opponent's brain was filled with lust, so out of every 10 points, 6 or 7 points would be deducted. As for the disadvantage, his side was not fully prepared, so he couldn't bring out his full ability. However, the ugly daughter-in-law still has to go to her father and mother. Who cares if you go through a mountain of daggers or a sea of flames, come at me directly. Several people carried Wang Lu all the way into the main room. The housekeeper instructed them to put Wang Lu on the ground. He looked up with a smiling face, wanting to curry favor with the old immortal master. However, the next moment, he was slapped by the red-eyed old man. The other 2 sturdy men were startled, and very consciously, they quickly withdrew from the room and closed the door. Then they secretly sighed, thinking, poor lovelorn drunken woman. I wonder if she can live until tomorrow morning? Previously, the several women who were plucked by the old immortal master, although they didn't die on the spot, according to the doctor, they would be seriously ill and would need to recuperate for 3 to 5 months before they could recover. Now that the old man was already losing his mind, perhaps. At the same time, inside the room, the old cultivator's hunger and thirst had long been unbearable. Seeing the drunken woman on the ground, especially her exposed white chest, he could no longer bear the burning desire in his jade mansion. With a lascivious smile, he stretched out his hand to take off her clothes. Little beauty, I'm coming. However, unexpectedly, the next moment, the woman suddenly got up. Her gorgeous long skirt was twisted by her body and flew in the air, blocking the old cultivator's line of sight. Under this strange change, the old cultivator was horrified. He never thought that the mysterious woman, whom he regarded as a long-lasting drought, was actually an assassin. When the woman entered the room, he had clearly identified that she didn't have any cultivation base. Therefore, he felt relieved and boldly prepared to pluck her. However, he didn't expect that the person who came in was actually a chi cultivating stage cultivator from a famous sect with solid basic skills. Even though her cultivation base was not high, the method to hide her cultivation base was brilliant. Due to his momentary negligence, he was unexpectedly deceived. However, this old man was indeed worthy of the title of a 6-star elder. Although he was horrified, he subconsciously reacted. The magical power in the old man's jade mansion surged, and his loose skin and flesh suddenly swelled up. There was a faint luster circulating on the surface, which was harder than steel. At the same time, Ning. Zhen. Prison. In a row, 3 incantations were blurted out almost at the same time. Moreover, the target of these incantations was impressively the female assassin hiding behind the long skirt. When an ordinary person encountered an assassination, their subconscious reaction was to dodge and defend. However, according to the statistics of professionals, the best response was actually to fight back. When an assassin carries out an assassination, most of your defensive techniques have already been dispelled. No matter how hard you try to defend yourself, you can't block the enemy's attack. On the other hand, if you go all out, you can often find a way to survive. It may sound ridiculous, but this is the objective reality, and you can't deny it. And this was also the valuable knowledge that the old cultivator learned in a Wanxian League sect when he was young. The first thing he did was to go through several procedures to defend against sneak attack and assassination. He used the incantations to pin down the opponent, and then he used his powerful foundation establishment cultivator's body to protect his life. He was confident that unless the opponent's cultivation base was several times higher than his, he could at least survive the first round of attack. But for an assassin, as long as the first round was not successful, it would be difficult to succeed later on. Sure enough, in the old cultivator's soul-stirring state, the long skirt in the air slowly fell to the ground. The assassin behind the curtain was firmly bound by the 3 incantations, and her movement became stiff and slow. However, he couldn't take it lightly, because although his thunderous strike was blocked, the opponent's killing move was not finished. The woman's waterfall-like long hair, at this time, really spread out like a waterfall and shrouded him. What kind of evil method was this? The old cultivator was secretly surprised, but he didn't panic. Once again, he spat out the incantations, summoning a gust of demonic wind, which blew away those 3,000 strands of hair. No matter what, they couldn't get close to him. However, when the demonic wind whistled, the old cultivator's heart suddenly moved, and he subconsciously reached out to his throat. However, he just happened to touch an invisible filament. My goodness! Pretending to be a plank road, but secretly sneaking in Shensong. The real killing move was hiding here. Although this thin filament didn't have any killing power, if it really wrapped around his throat, the incantations would not be smooth, and it would be very troublesome. Fortunately, he had cultivated for nearly 100 years. Although his realm was not high, he had cultivated a keen intuition, which saved his life at the critical moment. After the invisible filament was discovered, it naturally couldn't do anything, and the old man twisted his finger and twisted it away. At this point, the opponent had used up her trump card, and could only struggle futilely under the suppression of the 3 incantations. The old man immediately let out a sigh of relief, knowing that the most difficult stage had been passed. Next, he would slowly deal with this extremely daring female assassin. Thinking of this, the old man couldn't help but become angry. However, at this time, the long skirt fell to the ground, revealing the assassin's true body. From the outline of her underwear, he could vaguely see the shape between her legs. The old man's straight spear suddenly softened. I knew it. What beautiful assassin, it's all a lie. But, why don't I just make do? In any case, her face is not bad. Thus, although the spear between his legs still needed nourishment, the fire in his heart began to burn again. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded from behind him, which instantly made his fiery heart sink to the bottom of the valley. You perverts, all of you must die. On the back of his head, a powerful blow, without any hindrance, penetrated his protective shield, and shattered the high-rank magical tool that he regarded as his second life, the 7 Treasures Heart Protection Mirror. A vast and unparalleled force crazily rushed over like a stormy sea, scattering his divine sense and shaking his jade mansion. His vision turned dark, and he fainted. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.